Hey everyone, for this session, we are going to be reviewing Samito's video. We're going to be responding to it. It's the Save Overwatch patch. I have not seen this video before. I have not looked at the patch notes that he, put out for what he thinks would save Overwatch here. And I'm curious, because I know this circulated a bit. I wanted to give it a little bit of time to circulate before I responded, as I wanted him to be able to get the views for his video and not people just, leech them here effectively. But we are here. I am now going to watch this one, respond to it with my thoughts. I'm interested because I've heard some good things about this one, but I also know Samito can have some interesting takes around heroes he just doesn't like, where he will just hate on Brig forever, even when she's maybe in okay places. So I'm curious how that will go, if it's going to be great or if it's going to be some of the all the things that stop me from eliminating things are bad. And the game does need a certain degree of defense matrices, Brig type things, not to the level of Brig, Mercy Reses. It does need some defensive things that slow down, that make things unfun for DPS, because, they don't sort of let things happen. And I'll be curious where this goes. So I don't want to say too much, because I don't want to be like, oh, he's going to say all this when he doesn't. So let's just get into it.
I think it's pretty safe to say that a lot of my takes on how ineffective balance patches would be in the long term over the last 2 years has been proven to be true, right? We still see a lot of double shield. We still see Bap and Brig be the best supports in the game.
Okay. I mean, double shield, you see some of it. It's definitely not the most popular thing right now. Even on ladder, double shield is powerful, don't get me wrong. You can win with double shield, but overall you're seeing much more ball than Orisa on ladder. You're also seeing more Hog and Zarya overall on ladder right now than you are seeing Orisa. Like, Orisa's not that popular on ladder, if that's what the complaint is. In organized play, double shield is powerful. It's a legit comp, but it's probably like the fourth most played comp, behind Zenball, behind Brawl, behind Monkey Anna comps, be they D.Va or Double Bubble variants, and then Double Shield. No, that's not fair. Six man is more common than double shield. I'd say double shield is more common than double bubble. That's how I'd go there. So I don't know there, but that's okay. Let's keep going.
And we still see the main tank role kind of non-existent. So let's start this off.
Well, no one's gonna like the main tank role because it's too stressful. That's always hard to get with, because the main tank role is a fragile initiator in a game where people don't really want to work together. Like, it's one of the roles that is the most benefit or tiedness to people wanting to work together. And unless we're just getting rid of that, and if you get rid of that, you can run a little bit into, okay, well, no one wants to break chokes, Valorant style corner holding simulator type stuff. So okay, if he thinks he can fix that, I'm curious.
First thing I would do, step one, Vault Brig. This hero has proven to be game-breaking as long as she can stack healing the way she does whilst healing at the same time.
Hey, maybe they listened to it. Maybe this is why we got the patch that was, the experimental patch of she can't do Inspire healing and repair pack healing. She only gets repair packs, but she gets more repair packs. I mean, maybe that's specifically what they were looking at, and they said, hey, you're right, let's go do this. Obviously, the experimental stuff was mostly contributed by, or at least somewhat contributed by the players, but we've heard from the players that no, Blizzard actually worked some of their own changes in there and then credited the players for those changes, even though Blizzard just wanted to do them themselves, probably as Overwatch 2 experimentation. So maybe they agree with Samito here.
So for now, we just need to put her in the vault and see how the game functions without her. Because as of right now, there's not a healthy way to have this character be in the game.
It's really tough. Like, I actually would be curious what would happen if you put her away for 3 months. That could be a really interesting PR move. You put her away for 3 months and you say it's a temporary thing and she's only going to be gone for 3 months, because you'd get enough news headlines, enough Twitter traffic, you'd get enough knowledge passed on, and I would be curious, would that cause the people that say they left the game because of her, say they left the game because of goats, would that get them to massively come back and try the game, and then would there be any retention there? And Blizzard could see those metrics, we could. But you'd have to be very clear from the get-go that we're doing this as a temporary thing. A, because it would cause people to actually come try to check it out while it's temporary, and B, you do less to alienate a player base that says, no, 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 she has to be here. She's necessary. Otherwise, the game is just DPS players picking on support players, which is part of how we got there in the first place. I don't know how much of that crowd is still here, but I do know we lost some of the harder core FPS, a fair amount of the harder core FPS people when we had Brig. A lot of people did leave as Brig was powerful the first time. The current Brig is nothing like the Brig that did that, but you could draw them back, or some portion of them back, by saying that. That would be an interesting experiment to try, and I don't think you'd alienate a ton of the players that are here. You'd alienate some of them, but I think it's an acceptable degree if you went, we're putting her away for 3 months to see how the game plays. Like, that could be really interesting, actually. Um, I'm not a fan of this, like, delete Brig idea overall. I actually think she's in a reasonable place right now for the game, but from, like, a business standpoint, that has some appeal to me. From a balance standpoint, Brig is too powerful. She's quietly too powerful, but she's too powerful, but she's not massively too powerful. She shows up a little too much in that she's your go-to main support in too many situations, and Lucio and Mercy should probably sneak their way back in there a little bit, especially Mercy. When you get to organized play in a poke comp, you can go with Bap Zen, or you can go with Bap Brig. You're very rarely going to go with Zen Mercy for a poke comp, and that's probably a problem. And that problem is really from Brig is too powerful, and probably Bap is on the more powerful side as well, because Mercy should be one of your best options for poke heroes. Instead, she's like your third choice. Let's run Bap Mercy or Mercy Zen, like Zen Mercy. No, like she needs to not be your like third or fourth choice for what you'd run in a poke comp, while also in a poke comp, oh no, we're gonna run Brig instead because she's better anti-dive, that sort of thing. She's gonna cause our poke comp to brawl. She probably is too strong still, but she's not massively over strong, ruining the game. And some level of things that slow down the game, like defense matrix, like Brig, are necessary. Anyway, I'll let him go.
A lot of low ranked players, I say this all the time, where I say Brig is broken, and that's why she should get a rework, because she's meant to be an entry level character that is a lot like Moira, that you should see this kind of curve on her. We see this is how you maintain fair play in a game like this, right?
Okay, so, well, I'll let him go before I fix
You
it.
have a skill to reward curve, right? So you have R for reward here, and you have skill in terms of like SR, and like I think I actually need to draw SR here, right? So
Skill is fine.
here's Moira.
Okay.
We'll have her in her little magenta color. So the amount of reward you get, the higher up you go in ranks, is the graph should look like this. Like there should be a definitive drop off to a character that doesn't require a lot of mechanics, right? But the reality is with
Okay. I mean, that's sort of true for Moira. That's sort of true for Bastion. Bastion's curve probably hits a little earlier than Moira's does, but sure.
Brigitte, who should have a chart that looks like this, she actually looks like this.
Yeah. She does.
Right? And the reason for that is Brig's at her best when she's denying damage, right?
Well, she's better when the opposing flankers are better. Like, the problem is Brig's best role is bodyguard. When I'm teaching people to work on Brig, like, what you're going to look at with Brig is, okay, you've got to get your repair pack usage right. You've got to bodyguard for your support efficiently. Then you start moving into, okay, we'd like to get whip shot accuracy for a high inspire time, and we want to understand how to close out fights in the brawl and when we actually need to go in and brawl to get the full value out of our hero and not just be an AFK bot. But you don't teach people to go in and brawl hard early because they feed, they go in too early, they lose, fights don't close out reliably enough. Brig does a lot better when fights close out more reliably, and she also does a lot better when opposing flankers are dangerous, as well as when her partner support is good enough to warrant being pocketed. It's sort of the Mercy problem all over again. If Mercy's complain about, hey, doesn't make sense to play Mercy, doesn't make sense to blue beam because the low level players can't hit shots, well, Brig has a very similar problem, except the person that she's hardest enabling is her Ana, her Bap, her Zen to do a ton of work. But if the Zen is missing too many shots, the Ana isn't healing enough, the Ana is still dueling too much, those sorts of things, Brig's value is going to go down because she should be allowing the Ana to go from paying 60% attention to her team to the Ana being able to pay 90% attention to her team. But if the Ana, you know, if you increase a low player's ability to pay from 60 to 90%, that has less reward, even if the Brig is great. So she suffers from, in some ways, a very similar problem to Mercy there. So, like, I get where he's going here. He actually does understand the problem correctly. That's good.
And she has Inspire up. Getting Inspire up.
I don't know that it's necessarily bad, though. I don't know that it's necessarily bad that she's not so helpful, not so but such a big deal at lower ranks, and becomes better as the flankers get better and as your flex supports get better. I don't necessarily know that I agree that that's a problem. I think he doesn't like that she's brain dead at higher levels, like she's too easy to play in high level games and contribute, but you can't get into those high level games without either driving her really well or having other skills to get there in the first place and having the game sense that works. Doesn't bother me the same way because she's not overpowered. Just you're not seeing Brig players go, okay, they're terrible, but Brig just carries them to here on the ladder, and then Brig continues to work for them because no, they have to be better like this to get to here. But I know he really hates Brig, so we'll continue.
And staying alive is something that takes brain power and a lot of game sense to do. And your team needs to be kind of stacked near you. So she gets her most output when she's at high level play because there's not only is there more damage coming in, but you can play safer, there's better peel for her, and higher SR players understand that you can't play her as a melee character. You play your flails, and it's very misleading to low level players because they think she's a melee character. So they'll run in and feed with her instead of surviving and call the hero shit, when the reality is the hero's not shit. So she's a very misleading character, and if anything, that's even more reason to rework her because the players that she's supposed to be made good for suck with her, and they don't understand how to play her, and neither is she going to be her most effective in those ranks. So when people in low ranks say, well, Brig is...
Why does she have to be good for low rank players? Why does she have to be good for low rank players? It's not like the existence of Brig has made Tracer not exist anymore. You could say it made Genji not exist, but it's not like it's made Tracer or Sombra not exist anymore. I mean, she does have this weird thing where she's both enabling and disabling dive heroes, but like her existing isn't stopping people from playing dive heroes meaningfully, and she's vulnerable to poke heroes. So like I'm gonna need to hear more about what's unhealthy about her.
Is bad. Why would you vault her? That's all the more reason to vault her until we can figure out a way to healthily implement her so her learning curve looks like this, like Moira's, instead of what it is right here.
But why is this a problem, Samito? Like, I'm looking at this and I see what you're coming from, and I agree with how her curve works, but I'm not sure why it's necessarily a problem. So what is she doing? In the low-level games, you can say she's a problem. It's a problem of, oh, she's bad, but Tracer's bad in low-level games too. So, like, I assume the problem is that the high-level games, she's too powerful at those. So I want to hear more about that.
And actually, people say, well, we don't want her to be useless just like Moira. The main reason Moira is useless right now is because Brig just is better. Brig hard counters Coalescence just by fucking healing just a little bit, right? And if you Coalescence, you end up just feeding her rally. She also counters 6-man rush and dive because her heal aura is so big. So if you...
Not to the level of some people that we've reviewed here, but that's okay.
Nerf Brig, Lucio actually becomes a very good pick again. And that also...
Well, that I am attracted to. I am attracted to Lucio and Mercy getting a bit higher of a pick rate. I think Lucio being relegated to only making sense when your team offensively is using him, so brawl comps and 6-man comps, isn't great. I think the reality of having Lucio exist as peel both to fight off flankers is appealing. He's never going to be as good as it as Briggs, but we probably need to make Brawl a little more dangerous so that the concept of having a Lucio on your team to help your Zen, your Ana, whatever, rotate away from the opposing team's brawlers as well as divers is more attractive. Whereas right now, you're just happy to go, nah, brawlers aren't going to get to us. It's not a big thing. So I would be interested if we go that direction.
Hard enables Moira. So you'll see what you saw in October, which is a balance between Mercy, Ana, and Lucio Moira or Lucio Ana comps, in which case the game feels way more open. So step one, just to get the game back on an evil playing field.
Let me hear that again.
You saw in October becomes a very good pick again. And Aura is so big. So if you nerf Brig, Lucio actually becomes a very good pick again. And that also hard enables Moira. So you'll see what you saw in October, which is a balance between Mercy, Ana, and Lucio Moira or Lucio Ana comps, in which case the game feels way more open. So step one, just to get the game back on an evil playing field, is to get Brig the fuck out of the game. She literally, we have nerfed the hero 19 times. Jeff Goodman.
I don't know that I really consider the complete rework that we did a nerf. I consider it a big change, but okay.
Josh No and the balance team have nerfed Brigitte 19 times, and she still dominates the game.
Yeah, she was way too powerful on release. No question there.
So
it was stupid. It was stupid to go, let's have one hero try to counter the entire way that the majority of high-level Overwatch is played. Not a comp, let's have one hero do it. It was stupid. Everyone's on that page. Everyone who should have a seat at this table is on that page.
If that tells you anything, let's reevaluate. 19, like these guys at a Fortune 500 company tried to fix this 19 times. We got to change it up, right? The definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Albert Einstein. That is what we've done with Brig. It doesn't work. It's a sunk cost. We got to reevaluate. So step one, remove Brig.
Again, I don't consider a significant rework to her being trying the same thing. Again, it did create significant changes with her, and I actually believe she's a much healthier hero. She doesn't feel as oppressive in the game. She's not doing damage, healing, and tanking all at once now. She is in a much better spot for not poisoning the game, I would say right now, than she is before. That said, her pick rate is still really, really high, but so is D.Va's. The game was just fine when D.Va was like basically the only off tank. Hog is, not a great pick at high level play, and Sigma didn't exist. The game was basically fine. You had some complaints about D.Va, but the game was basically fine. And I'm not convinced by what Samito's saying that Brig isn't in that spot right now. I would like to see more Lucio. I would like to see more Mercy, but I could have said the same thing about D.Va when D.Va was the must pick hero of, hey, we're not seeing any play from Zarya or from Hog, and that the game's really okay when you don't see much play from Zarya or Hog. Or I could say the same thing in the first year and a half of Overwatch when Lucio was the must-pick main support and Mercy didn't see any play.
Brig and how we change her, there's no people wanted to
pick rate alone is not enough for me to go, oh hey, this is bad for the game.
Definitive answer, but the reality is
I know you want less Lucio, blah.
There is not a definitive answer yet. You have to wait and see how the game functions without her in it, and then find a way to implement her in a healthy way.
I'd be interested
after the fact.
I'd be interested in that. I think it would be a great promotion opportunity to go, hey, let's announce that we're going to vault her for 3 months and then bring her back. And then obviously at the end of 3 months you can change your mind and keep her out. But you're not burning a ton of goodwill with support communities that feel like, oh no, the flankers are just destroying us and blah 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 because you're saying it's only for 3 months. But you're also, because it's time locked, giving people an opportunity to come back to try it, some of the people left. I don't know that they will, but it would certainly be interesting. I think it could be a good marketing move, as well as, actually getting you good information for, well, how is it? Is it good? Do people stick? Are people enjoying it? Is playtime longer? That sort of thing.
Immortality field change.
BAP, yeah. That doesn't surprise me.
Reduction. 30 to 50%, we'll say.
Well, let's rename it. Let's not call it Immortality Field if it's damage reduction.
As well as a CD reduction.
Let me know on volume, guys.
Okay.
If he's too loud, too quiet, etc.
Right. The reason for this is when I had the chance to ask Jeff Goodman directly about if he has plans to change abilities, problem abilities like Brig and BAP, Immortality Field, he said that the reason...
Forms would maul WTF, DPS players just mad we could fight back. Yeah, they probably would, which is why you have to 3-month time lock it. But I also don't know how loud or how much of that community stuck around. That community is a part of how we got Moira and Brig in the first place. And I mean the original overpowered Brig, but I don't know how present they are anymore. I don't have the numbers on that. They're certainly not as loud as they used to be.
Reasoning for it, this was in the Creator Lightning Round AMA, was
Thank you, Marcelo.
that on the flip side of the coin, people were saying that ultimates were too strong. So we wanted to add an option to negate ultimates and have more counter ability to ultimates in the game. The problem is,
ultimates are not too strong. Again, we go through the types of advantage in Overwatch: positioning, player or number, and ult. And these are the three main types of advantage. You can get into fresh peak advantage. You can get into players and the actual skill level of the player advantages. Those aren't real things I'm going to consider right now. Obviously, those are real things. But like these are the most three things that I'd consider in a team fight as the general advantages you think of. And as we can see, I consider ultimate advantage to be the least important of these. It matters. It certainly makes a difference, but I consider it to be the least important of these overall. Okay, so let's go ahead and see where Samito's thoughts are.
right? If you add an ability, right? Well, let me define this. Let's define something here. Let's define ultimates and cooldowns.
Because ults are fine, but they're not like amazingly powerful. They're effectively long cooldowns, which is kind of what they are in League, which is kind of a place that uses them significantly, which is kind of what they are in Warcraft 3, which is kind of where this all comes from. But hey.
So we'll have a value bar graph here where you have general abilities here, give this much reward, right? And then ultimates will make them blue, give this much reward.
Nope.
Right? And because this ability, because ultimates give...
Oh, I'll turn them up a tiny bit more then.
Give more value, they take more time to charge, right? You have to spend more time, probably 2 or 3 fights, depending on the character, charging an ultimate in order to get it because it's that much more valuable, right? If you make a cooldown, red is going to be Immortality field. If you make a cooldown, give as much value as an ultimate in the game. You're not actually reducing the impact of ultimates in the game. In fact, you're increasing it because you've added a cooldown that gives ultimate level value every 25 seconds instead of every minute to minute and a half.
I mean, what do we think Res was? Like, Resurrect exists, it brings a player back to life, and a good ult these days, because again, position advantage and player advantage is better than ult advantage for the most part. Obviously, if you have 5 ults versus 0 ults, yeah, that's going to be a bigger difference than, the team that has 5 ults and only 5 people alive is going to probably win the fight against the team that has 1 ult and 6 people alive if they're willing to spend those ults. But like that, it would be an extreme example. If we made it less extreme, the team with the greater player number is generally going to win, or the team with the better positioning is generally going to win. But like again, in the modern era at high level play, an ult that gets 1 elimination in an even fight is a very good ult. Well, Mercy has a cooldown that undoes 1 elimination, and it's on a very similar cooldown length to Immortality field. I don't have it here. And also, you have heroes who absolutely have cooldowns that are better than ultimates. It's not just Bap that has this cooldown that's better than his ultimate. Like, I don't know that I'd consider Discord better than Transcendence, though that would be tough. I'd really have to think about that. But Discord is an amazing ability. You could say it's not a cooldown because it doesn't have a cooldown, but it's an ability, which is what we're comparing here, abilities and ultimates. And Discord is probably the most valuable thing on the field in Overwatch. Like, do we need to take away Discord because it's better than Lamp? Because Discord is better than Lamp. So I'm not sure I'm here. It's how you balance the hero's overall kit that matters here. You can have something where, hey, Cassidy has a pretty garbage ultimate, in Deadeye, and that's fine because flashbang and his weapon are both pretty good. His left clicks and his flashbang are both very good, so it's okay for him to have a pretty garbage ult and the hero to overall its power be balanced. Very similar thing with Sombra. Her kit isn't terribly powerful, but her ultimate is quite powerful. Now, her kit is a little more powerful than most people realize. Perfect scouting is really, really good, as is being able to maintain staging without getting forced out. But her weapon damage is low, and that is balanced against her having a very powerful ultimate. And that's fine. Again, we get into the total value of a hero, and you can adjust how often or how infrequently they get their ult if you need to, but it can be okay to have very powerful cooldowns. In fact, originally, I suspect what was supposed to be the case is Bap was supposed to have a weak ultimate in Window and a strong cooldown in Lamp, but we've made Window better and better as time have gone on. There's no reason that Window has to be, humongous at the size it is now. Remember, Window on release was a much smaller ultimate, and if you're worried about Bap's power because you think Lamp is too powerful, you could go after Lamp, or you could shrink his window back down to the standard personal window size that was its original thing. And that might actually be better, truth be told. I mean, that might actually encourage people to use the ult in a better way too. That window should be used personally more often than it is used, let me stack my whole team behind the window, which is how people too frequently use it and makes me sad. It's much better if, it threatens increases power from one direction and then you have teammates on off angles, or the BAP with the window on an off angle doing damage from another direction. Right, window used to suck. Why is Discord better than Lamp? Oh my god. Discord is amazing. 25% more damage from all sources that attack a target while it's out there. It's not on any sort of cooldown. Discord is a huge game changer. The existence of Discord is a big portion of what allows, a tracer plus ball to go get eliminations. The amount of work that they get done just going around and finding things, the amount of, hey, a tracer can't really challenge like Zen can defend himself against flankers, the huge amount of difference that a Discord makes over the course of a team fight is amazing. We saw this in Goats. That's probably an easier example for you to see, where you would have Reinhardt on one team that is backed up by a Moira, and you would have a Reinhardt on the other team that was backed up by a Zen. And yes, the Zen does some damage, but the difference that made this comp way, way better than the Moira version was that, hey, Discord on Reinhardt means that we crush you. It's not close unless you rig this situation very specifically for the Moira team, where the Moira team is able to hide behind a corner until the Zen team is right on top of them, and then just immediately, explosively, with covering no distance, try to immediately overwhelm the Zen team. That's like the only way that they can win. If you have anything resembling a straight-up fight, the Zen team crushes the Moira team every time. And again, we saw this in Goats, and it's very obvious in Goats. The amazing throughput of the Moira healing cannot keep up with the value of the Discord, and it's not even close. I'm using that example because it's easy to see. It happened. It's a meta that you all understand, but it's also a huge amount of work that is being done by Discord in dive comps and the modern Balls End comps in terms of tracers and balls and sombras see that Discord, they switch to it, and it gets a ton of eliminations over the course of a match that wouldn't otherwise have been there. Like, it is huge. Discord is better than Lamp, but Zen is diveable as the trade-off. Bap doesn't have that trade-off. He has no weaknesses. I agree that the problem is, if we're going to look at it an overall problem, and that's why I'm saying you could potentially weaken Bap's ult. That would potentially be one way to do it, rather than to make Immortality field a damage reduction. I'm saying I'm saying I disagree with his cooldowns aren't allowed to be as powerful as ults, because again, Discord Orb exists, Res exists, like that's just not really true. But you do have to balance, and instead you have to balance the total level of the hero, which you can do. Again, in Bap's case, you don't have to do it. You could make Lamp worse. That would be a perfectly fine way to attack Bap. That said, Zen is the more meta support right now, but attacking Lamp would be a perfectly fine way to weaken Bap, but it would also be fine to weaken his window, to not make it, the double, quadruple size, whatever it is now from its base size. And the trade-off that he would then have would be, hey, he's bringing a weaker ult to the game. Whereas Zen is diveable. Yes, Bap is not so diveable, but Zen has Transcendence, which is a very powerful ult, whereas Window, at least in the reduced form that we are talking about, would be a weaker ult by comparison. If Discord was on CD, would it still be better? I mean, that's a pure power question of what's the CD. If the CD was 6 seconds, no, it would not be. If the CD was 2 seconds, yeah, probably.
And what that ends up doing.
But that said, I would say, Shade, if I were to attack Bap, I'd probably attack his regenerative burst. I don't see a huge need for Bap to have regenerative burst. He has a full ability kit without regenerative burst, and that's fine, especially in Overwatch 2, where all the supports get Mercy's style of self-healing. But even in Overwatch 1, I would not be opposed to taking away regenerative burst from Bap. He does plenty of weapon damage already. His escape move is already Exo Boots. You can't take away Exo Boots because he does have to take high ground. That is just how his weapon is designed. He has to be able to take high ground to do small weaves of small crosshair movements between his tank that he's shooting at and the enemy that he's shooting at. So he really wants high ground for that. I think Lamp is too much a part of his identity. If I were to go after Bap, I probably would not take away Immortality Field. I'd probably look at either Shrinking Window, or I would look at removing, seriously, regenerative burst there. He would be a lot weaker if you removed regenerative burst, though. It might be too much. That said, I'd probably also revert the cooldown on his Exo Boots, the very minor cooldown that they added to his Exo Boots, if I went after regenerative burst. Val says, can you explain why Temporal thinks Res is powerful? Immort seems more powerful than Res since it's an AoE, safer to use, long range cast, not dying better than Res. I didn't say that Res was more powerful than Lamp. I said Res was a cooldown that was on par with ults, because a good ult takes down. Literally, an ult that gets one elimination is a good, successful ult, and Res can reverse one elimination. Now, there's limits to it. You have to get close to them. Bap prevents the ults, which is harder, but prevents eliminations from further away with his lamp, that sort of thing, though they do still go low health. But yeah, Mercy in a poke comp, and a poke v poke comp, just gets to turn around and immediately turn around a elimination, and that's as valuable as an ult. So yeah, like in poke v poke, reses are great. That said, in more divey comps, good teams understand how to deny the res, and against brawl comps, you're in a situation where Mercy really can't get back there to get the res because there's still a brawling group on top of the corpse, that sort of thing.
Is it then compromises the mid-fight of the game where you would set up engages to get value, right? And that's...
Let me rewind a little.
Every 25 seconds instead of every minute to minute and a half. And what that ends up doing is it then compromises the mid-fight of the game where you would set up engages to get value, right? And that's what made Overwatch so much fun. There was all these different ways to win a mid-fight before the ult fight came up.
But that's only true for the first fight of the match or the first fight of the round. Like, it's, if we're talking about the ability to charge an ult, we're literally only talking about the first fight there. Meh.
What you end up doing, Mr. Goodman, is you end up putting ultimate level value in every fight. And that doesn't take away from ultimates.
You know who else has ultimate level value in every fight? Roadhog. Roadhog has ultimate level value in every fight, right? He can go, hey, 7-second cooldown, 8-second cooldown, I'm going to hit a hook, get an elimination, that sort of thing. Doesn't make him a good hero. Tracer, very similar. Tracer has a relatively reliable, at least before the existence of Brig, could relatively reliably go in there and one-clip things. People weren't very good at Tracer at the time, but hey, that's ultimate level value. When ultimates weren't on the board, so at the very beginning of the match, or after you'd spent your ults and you were at the end of third point defending and you were in a desperation situation, Roadhog swaps, Tracer swaps, Widow swaps, those become Doomfist swaps. Those became, or in some of them still are, common swaps because they potentially have the ability to turn a fight because they have ultimate level value. Now, Roadhog's ultimate level value is in his hook, and as a result, Whole Hog sucks. That's fine. That's a way to balance a hero. Now, it doesn't actually work out because Hog is mostly a bad hero, but conceptually, no. It's okay to have some heroes with a huge amount of power in their cooldowns that are available early as opposed to in their ults. You just have to move the total strength of the hero around. It's not inherently bad for the game to have strong power available early in a fight. And D.Va's the same way, by the way. Defense Matrix, for a long portion of Overwatch's history, and even now, most people are not using self-destruct at the high levels to go, let me go try to get a 4K with this. Most people are using self-destruct to get a fresh mech back that has a bunch of DM again. And DM was available to you at the beginning of the fight.
It actually adds on to ultimates. So instead of nerfing the problematic ultimates across the board, which would be a good way to nerf ultimates if you were concerned, you've just replaced all of this.
You can't nerf ultimates overall much harder than they are and still have them feel even remotely meaningful. They're just not that big a deal. Like, ultimates are pretty well controlled at this point.
CD exchanges, which made Overwatch so brilliant to get countered by...
Obviously, there's exceptions. Rally is incredibly strong. EMP is incredibly strong. Duplicate is pretty darn strong. Like, there's exceptions, but I don't think a global let's make ultimates weaker makes any sense.
Ultimate level value way more consistently. It's not healthy. You've just replaced all of the CD exchanges, which made Overwatch so brilliant to get countered by ultimate level value way more consistently. It's not healthy for the game. It's incredibly infuriating to play against.
So I gotta hear this
That
again.
doesn't take away from ultimates. That actually adds on to ultimates. So instead of nerfing the problematic ultimates across the board, which would be a good way to nerf ultimates if you were concerned, you've just replaced all of the CD exchanges, which made Overwatch so brilliant to get countered by ultimate level value way more consistently.
But those are still CD exchanges. You use cheaper CDs to get out bigger CDs. It's totally fine for Reaper to go in, force Bap's Lamp, and then use Wraith to get out, because the cooldown difference between those two abilities is significant. So, Samito, this just sounds like a lack of understanding of what pressure cycles look like. Where you're going, hey, we're willing to hit a pressure cycle. Maybe we're going to hit a soft dive. Maybe we're going to have a Reaper walk in. I'll use this example, where the Reaper walks in, and maybe we do this during a soft dive. So the Winston dives in and tries to massively cleave with a Zarya bubble, or the Winston drops in with this and then uses Leap to get out. And while this is happening, the Reaper went and forced Lamp and is perfectly happy to trade Wraith form to get out because your team is more mobile. Your team can even protect him. Maybe you've even got someone over here who helps protect him, whatever. And then he gets out. And then before that huge cooldown that is Lamp comes back up, now you get to go in with your high energy Zarya, your Monkey that now potentially has Primal Charged, or Anna that has Nano Charged, whatever, and your Reaper gets to go back in for real this time, and their Wraith is available when Lamp isn't available yet. Like, pressure cycles are a thing. Double Bubble is just a good example of a comp that does it, but even if we ignore the Double Bubble over here, Wraith has a shorter cooldown than Lamp. This is very similar to Tracers, and Tracers have known this forever. I don't really want to fight that Anna that has both Sleep Dart and Nade. So I could jump her when she uses one of those cooldowns on someone else. I could also fight her lightly from a mid-distance, a mid to short distance with cover available. Fight her, try to be, not use blinks too wildly. Get out one of those cooldowns to be used on me that I'll dodge. Then wait a few seconds to get 1 to 2 blinks back, and then go in to actually eliminate her. Now, it's more complicated than this in a real match, because she starts getting help, she starts getting friends, things like this, and that's where you mix in, okay, I'll do this at the same time that my tanks are doing things, but this isn't new. Like, again, blinks come back faster than Sleep Dart does, so I'll use some blinks to get Sleep Dart, and then I'll go back and fight her. Wraith comes back faster than Lamp does, so I'll go in, force out the Lamp, then Wraith out, and then go back in and eliminate him. You would think it would be very interesting if Hanzo couldn't one-shot headshot. I think Hanzo needs some help. I hope Hanzo's covered here because it doesn't need help. He doesn't need to be stronger. I think Hanzo has an identity crisis, and we need to pick whether he's going to be a sniper or whether he's going to be a close-range tank buster. He shouldn't be able to be both. The fact that you can dive a Hanzo that doesn't have Storm Arrow, and he potentially still has lunge to get away, but can also just one-shot you, whoops, lucky headshot, is kind of not good hero design. Yes, it's a slow rate of fire weapon. I get it. Yes, it's a weapon that is a projectile, but like, no, he should not be doing both of those things.
It's not healthy for the game. It's incredibly infuriating to play
Good.
against, and there's ways to implement it in a much healthier way, to which case it doesn't do this and make cooldowns have ultimate level value with the cooldown level timer. It's horrible.
Roadhog's hook is on a very short timer for what it is. Like, I don't know about this one.
Horrible game design, and it's been 2 years, and we still haven't realized it. So, step 2, nerfing Immo. Get it out of the game. It has no place in the game. And then the main tank role will open up tremendously. The game will open up. If you get rid of Bap and Brig's most broken parts of their kits, the game will open up tremendously. We saw it happen last October. The reason why the game was so good last October was because Bap and Brig both had gotten nerfed, and no one was playing them, and the game, shocker, felt amazing to play for every single role. All queue times went down across the board. I very rarely saw more than a 2-minute queue, 2.5-minute queue on every role because everyone was willing to play everything because everything was fun. But now you don't see that anymore. You see 10-minute DPS queue times. You see long tank queue times because everyone's just walked away from the game because the experience is bad.
Were people playing main tank there last October? Were people playing main tank, or was that right as we were dealing with our Zarya Hog shenanigans? I might be mixing up my timeline there. Okay, let's continue.
Primarily because of those two abilities. So, second step. Immortality field to damage reduction field with the CD reduction. We're past the big problems, which is shocker.
So, again, we say that these are the big problems. I'm potentially okay with this from a marketing standpoint, and then if it feels really good, perhaps we keep it. But I actually don't know that she's being extremely unhealthy to the game. I worry that Samito would have had this same take about D.Va 3 years ago, and we've all learned to accept D.Va and that she's probably necessary for the game. Or we've substituted in Sigma, who does basically the same thing as D.Va. So, like, I'm a little skeptical on this because I haven't heard what she's actually doing that is so bad for the game. Bap, I've heard what he's doing that is so bad for the game is he's bringing ultimate level cooldown, ultimate level value twice as often as ults are available, and that's a bad thing. And I don't necessarily disagree that he's bringing ultimate level value twice as often as ults are available, but my point would be, okay, that's fine. I don't necessarily even mind nerfing Bap a bit, though again, Zen is seeing more play than Bap, but I'm not sure that bringing ultimate level value more than twice as often as, a regular ult is a really big deal. Like, I look at that and go, okay, that's fine if you can make other portions of their kit weaker and other heroes have ultimate level value on a cooldown. And that's okay because in my mind his cooldown is long enough that there's plenty of ways to bait it out, to use pressure cycles, etc., that make it fine. Now, again, it would be even easier to bait out if you took away his regenerative burst and he had to either hard outgun you, his team had to not let you get to him, or he needed to use the lamp to protect himself. Which, okay, and if they don't, he's going to use the lamp to protect himself type thing, and then, okay, that's fine, whatever. It's harder when regenerative burst is on the field, on top of jump, on top of reasonable positioning is a thing. Your team should be doing the normal stuff in terms of contesting lanes to not let you in. So I'm not sold that this is the right fix whatsoever, but at least I've got a little more of some understanding of why Samito thinks this needs to be done, but I do disagree with his premise. And these are the big two, apparently. So, again, I need to hear a lot more about point 1.
Support role, right? We're past the big problems, and now
every support can heal and peel at the same time. Healing is peeling. Do you mean heal themselves and peel? I mean, Zen can't heal himself and peel at the same time. Samito says Brig stacks healing while being able to peel, which is too good, as if it's an Ana, they have to choose dart or heal the team. I mean, oh, like that. Well, then Zen can do it. I mean, Zen can throw his Harmony Orb out, have his Harmony Orb out while fighting someone else. That's absolutely something that he can do. Like, that's not that weird. Lucio can absolutely be amping to heal his Zen who's in trouble while dueling a Tracer. Like, that's absolutely something Lucio can do. So, yeah, I'm not buying that one.
Now we're getting into nitty-gritty quality of life changes, right? Because after you nerf these
Ana does throw out Nano and then go fight her duel sometimes. Again, that's using an ult, but it's a thing she can do.
two things, these are the things that this hard force double shield, right? Immortality field is what hard forces double shield and window as well. And this hard forces dive and rush out of the game. So
out of the game. Excuse me, we're in a Zen Ball meta. That is a dive poke hybrid or a full dive meta, depending on how you want to think about it and which heroes you want to use. Like, that is the meta at professional play. You can say on ladder that's not as hard the meta as it is in professional play, but if you actually look at the meta across the regions in terms of what's getting played, you see some double shield, absolutely, but you do still see more ball. You do not see that much Orisa. You see some Winston. You're not seeing a ton of Reinhardt, but you don't really actually see that much Orisa on the ladder across the regions right now.
These two things would make the game open up brilliantly. So quality of life change. Let's see, Hanzo.
Oh, Hanzo, good.
Proj speed buff, storm arrow nerf, reduce arrow count by 1 to 2 arrows, probably 2, and maybe a CD increase. The goal of this is to make Hanzo more of a sniper rather than a spammer. Though this can wait if we are unsure we want to do this to the hero.
Okay. Projectile speed buff, storm arrow nerf to the count of arrows, potentially increase the CD. You want to give him a projectile speed buff. Okay. So it's going to cover greater distances faster. So that's your reasoning for he's more of a sniper, because he can fight far away things more effectively if his arrow moves faster. Okay. Sure. It also makes him more reliable in close range combat. Also, if his projectile moves faster. Not significantly, but it does make him more reliable in close range combat. But we're reducing the arrow count and potentially making Storm Arrow longer. So that's going to make him worse at, like... I suppose that's going to make him slightly worse at shield break scenarios in terms of let's wear down an enemy team. The idea is you should hit your shots. It's easier to hit your shots. It's still not where I'd go with him. I don't want him to be powerful at close range. I'm okay with making him more of a sniper. I am actually okay with that. I'm okay with him having a sniper, being a good sniper. I'm okay with reducing the cooldown on Sonic Arrow. I'm not even convinced the hero should have lunge, to be perfectly honest. Like, lunge just is sort of like, this isn't great. Like, yes, it opens up a few places for him to get to as a sniper, but mostly it's like, I have the ability to defend myself at close range. You can already headshot people. Your weakness should be someone getting on top of you if you're a sniper. So, like, is your weakness going to be reliability instead? It's not great for a sniper, but it's doable. You can design a hero's weakness to be reliability. But you're definitely not going in that direction if you're increasing his projectile speed. And that was sort of the thing. Like, Storm Arrow removes a lot of his reliability issues when things get on top of him, when he needs to finish off a target after he's hit it. Like, Storm Arrow is an ability that is there. Yes, it does help wear things down with shield break, but it also helps patch over his reliability problems. So, Storm Arrow or lunge? Kind of pick one. I really do want to make him more vulnerable at close range. Like, I'm not convinced that let's reduce his arrow count is the right answer. Um, I'm probably more in the realm of let's take one of them away. Like, let's take one of those abilities away. We don't need the overloaded kit. That might be too extreme of a nerf, and we might need to give him a little buff to compensate, such as projectile speed buff. We might need to do that. But I'm good with not having the overloaded kit. And I know that's extreme and it would make Hanzo worse, but again, Hanzo has never not been good since his rework. Full stop. I don't actually think it would put him in a worse situation than Ashe is in right now. If you took away Lunge, for example, that's probably where I'd want to go instead. I don't think this is the worst change in the world. I don't. They're making him. Samito's looking to make him more reliable, while also weakening Storm Arrow. So Storm Arrow covers for his reliability issues, but we're going to make him more reliable, and specifically we're looking to make him more reliable at range, which leans harder into the sniper role. I'm potentially okay with I'm okay with putting him more into the sniper role. I'd again take away one of those abilities and then probably reduce the cooldown on Sonic Arrow to make him a better sniper, but that's okay. What about giving Hanzo reloads? You can't really. I mean, it's either got to be every arrow has a reload, which is effectively what it is. So you can increase his delay between shots if you want to. That's something that you could do, but he's going to be really bad at wearing targets down, and that's not great for poke. I mean, maybe that's okay. Widow's really bad at wearing targets down. Widow isn't exactly picked for let me exhaust this team till we get an elimination. She's picked for her ability to force an elimination. So I guess you could go that route. You'd have to make his projectile speed. You'd basically have to make him a hit scan if you made his rate of fire much slower, though. So, no, probably not. Kind of already has reloads, delay on CD storm arrows, single shot primary, kind of, yeah. His shots are slow to make up for the fact he has no reload like Sigma. Right, and Sigma also has that sort of mini reload that Sigma does between the 2-round bursts.
So that can wait. That's more of a quality of life change.
This isn't exactly how I do it, but I don't hate it. I think he's going in the right direction here of Hanzo, again, too much of an identity crisis. He wants to make him more into a sniper. I prefer that design direction, making him more into a sniper, but I'm probably willing to, again, just go, let's axe Storm Arrow entirely. You can have the projectile speed buff. You can even have a Sonic Arrow. Let's either ditch Storm Arrow entirely or ditch Lunge entirely. Have the projectile speed buff maybe, and then maybe take a second, 2 seconds off Sonic Arrow there, something like that. That's probably where I'd go with Hanzo.
4. Revert. Okay, let's get this down one more. I wanna. Oh god damn it. Reverts Dragon Blade damage nerf.
Okay.
Dragon Blade can no longer be damage boosted. So the only reason Blade's broken is Shocker, because support and tank ultimates, the most powerful ultimates in the game, have always been that.
Sombra, Symmetra, Roadhog, those would be some counter examples, but okay.
Change breakpoints, and if you change breakpoints, you end up with things that are a little oppressive or a little broken. So if you have an ultimate that's too strong because of breakpoints, then make it so that it can't actually break those breakpoints, so the game still stays fair, but you have a lot more fair play, a lot more counterplay, which is what made the game so much fun.
Hey guys, you want counterplay for even Nanoblade? Whole Hog does a pretty good job. You can grab a Genji to keep him steady. You can shatter him. You can hook him. You can flashbang, then bash him. I mean, there is counterplay even for Nanoblade. You can primal him away and mess him up pretty well. So, like, I kind of feel like at high levels, the complaints about Nanoblade even are overblown, and I think you could just revert the damage and it would be fine. The problem is he becomes really effective at terrorizing when he's the best player in the lobby. When he's the best player in the lobby, he becomes an absolute terror with those nanoblades, with those mercy boosted blades, those sorts of things. I'm not even convinced that he needs to be controlled. Uh, and if you're going to make it so that he can't be damage boosted, I actually want him to get other buffs to compensate for that. His current state isn't enough. He's going to need further buffs. So maybe we're going to see further buffs, and that's the justification for this. The reason that they haven't already done this, because it does free up Genji's design space a ton if you make it so that he can't combo, is because it's unintuitive. I understand where Blizzard is. They want the game to somewhat be intuitive in terms of what works together and what doesn't. And most of the time when they've broken combos like Dragon Strike, there's still some sort of logic. You used to Mercy Boost Dragon Strike. Grav plus Mercy Boosted Dragon Strike used to be the way. Grav Mercy Boosted Dragon Strike just wipes the other team, and Transcendence doesn't matter. You still beat them. They broke that, but they've sort of been able to justify that with, well, it sort of fits into categories of transformation versus this, versus, you can boost the Torb when he shoots, but if you boost Torb, it doesn't increase his turret, and that's like Dragon Strike, and some of it is hogwash, but they've been able to loosely justify it, and there really isn't a great reason to be able to justify from any sort of understanding standpoint, oh, well, you just can't boost Dragon Blade just because. I mean, you can invent some lore thing of oh, well, Genji is releasing his limiters when he uses Dragon Blade, and therefore he's pulling out all of the potential that he has as a cyborg ninja. And, Mercy is doing the same thing when she boosts, where she's, unlocking your potential, but there's no potential left to unlock, so it doesn't work. You can do some lore-based thing, but, it's kind of weak. And that's one of the reasons they haven't done it. I still think it's okay if you do want to do that. I don't necessarily mind, truth be told. I think we're in a place where if you're going to do that, you need to buff something else. I'm okay with doing that, but I actually then want to make Dragon Blade stronger, or I want to make Genji's neutral game stronger. And I would probably make Dragon Blade stronger if I did that. I'd probably say if we're going to break the combo potential to free up a ton of design space for him, that's fine with me. We can accept that it breaks the reason. That's why they've done it. I'm not saying it's a good reason. But let's probably then make Dragon Blade itself a more dangerous ult, because Genji is kind of supposed to be a powerful ulter. Again, though, that's going to make him a terror when he's the best player in the lobby. And lower ranks already despise Genji much more than they despise Tracer. Tracer is by far the more powerful hero, but it has to do with the fact that players who don't yet have good aim tend to be worse at these flicks to hit Genjis that are jumping around than they are at hitting these flicks on Tracers that are blinking around. At higher levels, Tracer is definitely 100% better, but these, diagonal upwards jumps and these let me jump over your head and get behind you things are more effective than they should be on lower level players. They scale very, very poorly, and that causes Genji to be frustrating. Okay. Top 500 makes Nanoblade look like not even a good ult anymore. It feels like Samito thinks there's no counterplay since his Pulse Bomb can be countered by Lamp now, right? If Nanoblade is the complaint, I think it's better for Blade to increase its speed while decreasing its damage, maintaining DPS, making it stronger or dry while taking out its one-shot in Nanoblade. You could. I suppose you could. I think that would be more awkward and clunky, to be honest. It would sort of increase his skill cap because you'd have to get even more complicated with your ghost dashes and such. Probably not the direction I'd go. I don't really like breaking the timing. I'm not a fan of breaking timings and skills and patterns that players have built up over time. I wouldn't really be a fan of, okay, now you have to learn to slash at a different pace. I don't really like changing rates of fires, things like that. I don't really like betraying skills that players have built up like that. Just like I don't really like changing weapon spread on Genji's shurikens, because again, Genjis have gotten used to the specific angles that they're supposed to hit, and they've spent years developing that habit, and oh, now we're going to betray it and break it, and it's that's going to take years to undo. Some of it can be unavoidable, yes, your combos change sometimes when damage breakpoints change, and that's just life, but I don't really like that direction. Don't change timing or speed, punishes people for grinding skills. Exactly.
5. We're going to take a look at Echo next.
No. You do not revert the Dragon Blade nerf, but then make Dragon Blade no longer boosted unless you're giving Genji more buffs. That's literally not going to work. No. That is a net nerf to Genji, a hero who is already basically not played in organized play. And we've done a whole video on why Genji can't be meta. It has to do with Sombra and Echo, and we're about to go into Echo. But like, you have to give Genji more buffs if you're taking away his ability to boost his blade. Like, that is a huge nerf to a hero that already does not see playtime at upper levels or in organized play.
Okay. Echo can now die and duplicate.
Okay.
Reduce ult. I spelled that wrong. I am an idiot. Reduce ult charge rate to compensate by 20%, whichever that.
I'm not sure 20% is the number, but okay.
Whatever, it was either 20% or 15%. I don't remember what the nerf
15 sounds more right.
was they gave her, but you can revert that now. And now it adds a lot more counterplay to duplicate, which just gives her so much lives. Like, you actually have to.
So that's okay. What you're looking at with Echo is her design space. Is she's supposed to be a poke diver hybrid that leans more into her dive aspects, where Pharah is a poke dive hybrid that leans a little more into poke. That's not totally fair. She is a poke dive hybrid that is still more on the poke side than on the dive side. But if we looked at a scale of like, over here we're going to have poke and over here we're going to have dive, Sombra would be, Tracer's our hardest diver, but it would be Tracer, Sombra, and then as we go through this scale, so Tracer, Sombra, we would over here find someone like Genji. Over here, give me a full poke hero. So a full poke hero could be Cassidy. And then we would have something like, over this is going to be our maybe we'll move it a little further over. This is going to be our Pharah, and then we're going to have something, and maybe we put like a soldier over here, and then we're going to put something like our Echo right here. So she's meant to occupy this space in a spot between Pharah and Genji. In terms of Genji, Genji dives pretty hard. I'd probably put Genji further over, closer to Sombra, but Sombra is ultimately a more divey hero, whereas Genji is a bit more of a poke hero. You guys can argue that. You can say I should swap them. I should definitely move them closer, but I'm not going to move my whole chart at this point. But the point is, Genji actually uses his poke phase a fair bit to build that ult charge to do those things. Genji is, a relatively hard diver with a pretty decent poke phase. If you look at the original dive metas, you would see Genji Tracer was pretty common, Tracer Soldier was pretty common as well, and what you were looking at there is, if we want to go more dive heavy, we have our Genji. If we want to go more poke heavy, we have our Soldier, but ultimately Genji does have some meaningful poke that happens there. In the modern era, it's not terribly meaningful, but it does exist. Again, I would shrink the distance between these two, probably significantly. But the point is, Echo exists between these two in that she is supposed to be a poke dive hybrid. She's supposed to be able to dive harder than Pharah. And how she does that, she can't really dive harder than Pharah if she doesn't get any level of extra life. What she gets is, yes, she has more flexibility perhaps to her dive movement ability, though it's actually not as fast as Pharah's Concussion Blast, but what she has is her ult reinforces her dive in the form of, hey, she's in here and she's still alive. She cloned a D.Va, she cloned a Winston, she cloned a Tracer, she cloned a Reinhardt, whatever, and she's in there doing work, and that duplicate is part of her dive ability. Now, she doesn't always have it. She can still dive without it. Obviously, she'll dive in, go for a sticky sequence. She has that focusing beam. She has some good abilities for that dive, a little more so than Pharah, but duplicate is part of it, and actually the extra health of sorts from duplicate is really part of it. So I don't know that taking away her extra life from duplicate is right, because it's kind of there for a reason to keep her where she is on the dive scale. If you take it away, she moves further over here. She's still going to be a better diver than Pharah, but I don't know that I want that. I kind of like she becomes really too close to Pharah in that case. I like them having a little more design difference than that. And you can say, oh no, Pharah, well, if you're counting ults, Pharah's a powerful diver because she barrages. Sort of. I do like their design space being a little more different there. And I think if you make duplicate come up a ton less. Oh no, we're going to have it come up more. Okay. We're going to have it come up more, but it's not going to give her significant extra durability. I mean, no. I'm still gonna say no. I think what we already did to reduce duplicate's durability was adequate. Where hey, you come out with what 100 life now instead of full life. Maybe it's less. I think as long as you're having her come out, you can have it be 100. You can have it. She comes out with what she had before in terms of hey, if she pops duplicate at 1 HP when she comes out of duplicate, she's back at 1 HP. That's fine with me if you want to go that direction. I don't think I actually want her eliminatable in duplicate. I agree it feels bad to be trying to eliminate a copy and knowing that you're not actually going to delete the hero. You're just going to have a new Echo that basically has their cooldowns back because they were in copy while their cooldown timers were ticking. I agree that feels bad, but that durability is part of her dive and part of what makes her that. I actually think if you need to adjust her and weaken her, and you might have to, she's a pretty good hero, you're probably either touching the damage on focusing beam, you are increasing the amount of ult charge it takes to get duplicate, you are decreasing the duration of duplicate, or you are decreasing the ult charge multiplier she gets in duplicate. Those are places I would look if I wanted to nerf Echo. I probably wouldn't be willing to go much harder after duplicate than they already have from a durability standpoint. Echo needs nerf. I think she probably does, but I don't think very many people know that because I don't think very many people are as good at her as they should be, even in the professional level. I think she's like Tracer, where people are just going to keep getting better at her over time, and we're going to be like, oh my goodness, this hero existed at this skill level for so long, and people didn't really realize it. I think for a while she got held back by hit scan being powerful, but we had basically a global hit scan nerf, and I think she is more powerful than people realize right now. Make her focus beam ramp up at 35 or 40% health rather than 50. Yeah, that'd be a fine way to nerf her. Okay. But yeah, overall, this I'm not a fan of. She doesn't need more often duplicates. She actually does need some of the durability from duplicates, and I actually think it's a worse design space to have her go and be a even more rapid ult cloning machine. That really changes how she operates. I don't think that's better or healthier, and I think after Samito played against this for a while, he actually wouldn't like how often he was running into what? They have extra self-destructs just all the time. They have extra monkeys coming at us just all the time, that sort of thing. I don't actually think he'd like it after playing against this, but okay.
Play smart, you're at risk, it adds counterplay to the game, and we like counterplay in the game because that's what makes Overwatch so much fun.
Sure, counterplay's great.
Buttons in the game like Immortality Field or Brig, no one really likes that, right? So you kind of have to wait.
I mean, Immortality Field is counterplay to some things. Might not like it, but okay.
You just, it doesn't work. So, yeah, now we're going to move on. Let's see. Reverts, Roadhog, 25% ult charge reduction.
Okay.
This change just straight up removed what made this hero punishable at no skill cost of the player.
Okay.
Changes like this are really unhealthy for the game.
But all tanks are going to have something like this in Overwatch 2.
If players want to get more value, they need to either be mechanically better or smarter positionally.
I mean, or smarter. They need to be mechanically better, or they need to be smarter. Those are fair, or they're, that's fine. I wouldn't say smarter positionally. I wouldn't limit it like that. You can get more value by ult tracking. Okay, that's not making you smarter positionally, but it is making you handle things a bit better, that sort of thing. But okay, that's fine. So I'm okay with this. Again, Roadhog maybe needs buffs, but maybe we're okay with Roadhog not getting buffs because we're just okay with Roadhog being bad because we think it's fine that D.Va and Sigma just live in the off-tank spot. But if it's fine that D.Va and to a lesser degree Sigma just live in the off-tank spot, why can't Brig just live in the main support spot? So if we feel like, no, we need to have the diversity, we have to we need the diversity, and that's why Brig isn't allowed to be in that main support spot, then it doesn't work for me to go, let's nerf a hero that already isn't good and not give them anything to compensate. I don't particularly like this change, truth be told. I understand what they're going for here. I think it's a bad change. I think what they're trying to do is that it's trying to appeal to this like MMO belief of tanks are supposed to take damage. They are supposed to be the ones that get shot. Shoot at me, I'm the tank. But the thing that you run into is no. I would rather you shoot at me than my teammates, but the goal is for none of us to take damage. Tanks are effectively choke breakers. They have a little bit more ability. It's like, okay, let's say we're playing a true FPS game, not a hybrid like Overwatch, and we have 3 soldiers, and we're playing a 3v3 game, and one of our soldiers has some body armor. They can still get headshot. They'll go down to 2 bullets instead of 1 bullet. Higher caliber weapons may still take them out, that sort of thing. I'm still going to pick this person to break the choke over these people, but I have no illusion that this person getting shot at is a good thing in any way. Like, it's not a good thing. It's just, hey, we have 3 bad options for who's going to go through the choke, and this is the least bad option. When you're dealing with the other team having firepower, that is how you want to think about things. And this, like, oh, tanks are going to feed less ult charge because they're, like, supposed to get shot, that isn't really a good change. That's like trying to play too much into this MMO type mindset of like, yeah, the tank tanks damage, the enemies attack the tank, we heal the tank, and our team eliminates them, or our team eliminates their tank, or we overwhelm their healing. Overwhelming the opponent's support healing by shooting at the tank isn't actually how you're supposed to play this game. I know it's a way to play this game, and there's times when it's the right way to play this game, but like it's feeding too much into a one-dimensional way to play the game that is too much players' history, and I get that. Overwatch pulled in a ton of players that aren't historically FPS players. I am not historically an FPS player, and I do have a fair amount of MMO experience, but like it's doing too much of the, well, because players want to think about the game this way, let's change our game to be more this way. That's still not going to be the right way to play the game in significantly more situations. It's sort of forced itself into being one now, and you'll see that with Roadhog opens, where Roadhogs go and intentionally get the first ult of the fight, not for themselves, but for their Ana, by going, I'm going to take 25%, I'm going to feed 25% less damage ult charge, so the other team is going to shoot at me, and if they don't, I'll hook and eliminate people, and I'll just let my Ana heal me a ton, and my Ana will get nano before the opponents get their Bob, which is the answer. When people tried to do this before this change existed, the other team would quickly realize it, and they'd charge an ult like Torbolt, like Bob, something like that, so the nano would be answered. Now you can get it, and there's not a ton the other team can do, other than go force a fight with you, which is a pretty good answer because, hey, they're forcing a fight with you and you have Hog, so you're probably going to lose. But it was effectively the normal answer of, hey, let's just feed ult charge to one person doesn't work anymore. Again, this feeds two. So allowing that is, in my opinion, foolish. I don't like that strategically, but also it's just playing too much into this, like, yes, shoot at tanks, heal tanks, do enough damage to take them down like an MMO boss, which is, again, it's fine that people came from MMOs. It's good that people came from a diverse genre of games to get to Overwatch, but okay, they're here now. And Overwatch does not have to be a hard, strict FPS. It definitely does not. League isn't a hard FPS, and this shares a lot of principles with League, and guess what, you're not trying to attack the tank and take the tank down first unless the tank's positioning becomes bad. Oh wait, that's true in League, that's true in Overwatch. You see where this goes. Bob is the answer. What? Having an ult is the answer. If the opponents jump at you with a nano monkey or a nano hog or whatever the case may be for the first fight, and you have no ults, it's actually pretty rough because they have an extra ability. Now, there's things you can do to prevent it. You do positioning to make the monkey, for example, not have a good jump target when he has his ult, and then he goes, okay, well, now let's battle for our staging, and if they battle for their staging, well, that's enough time for you to get another 15-20% ult charge and have an ult. But the idea is, if the monkey's able to jump on you and you don't have any ults, that's pretty good. If the monkey's able to jump on you, but you're able to send a Bob at their backline, that forces a response. Or you're able to, send a Bob to do some sort of mess up, or a Torbolt to mess them up, or even a Dragon Strike to mess them up. Having really any ult available makes a pretty good answer to them having an ult. Not because Bob specifically counters Nano in any way, but just because Ashe might be a hero that you have. It's pretty common to have on maps where this kind of strategy gets tried, and being able to throw an Ashe at the enemy team can mess up their backline enough where their backline isn't supporting their monkey, so now 4 or 5 of you can deal with the Nano monkey, that sort of thing. Sorry, Roadhog, but with how you currently function, the game is more fun when you're bad. True, true. Bob cries in sleep while the enemy pushes anyway. I mean, that's quite a possibility. Yeah, that's quite a possibility. But what if you send your own monkey plus a Bob into the enemy backline? Are you going to sleep the monkey or the Bob? That sort of thing. Okay, well, we can still 4v1 the Nano monkey in our backline if we've sent our monkey plus Bob into their backline.
Okay, here we go now. See,
or you can use the Bob to uppercut the monkey, if you want to break the dive like that. Not so much an option for Hog to hook Bob off the map there. But also, again, okay, your Bob's getting some value by doing those things. Like, again, your Bob is getting some value by having a Reinhardt stand there and put their shield in front of him, by having Hog spend his hook on him. That weakens the engage that is happening while the Nano Monkey is on you. So, that is not worthless, actually.
I don't like Hog. Look, I'm not going to lie. I don't like Hog being able to run around while healing, but you can't double nerf a hero like that because you'll end up dumpstering the hero.
You're already going to dumpster him by removing this change. This change I don't think was good for the health of the game, but Hog's already not a good hero. People play him because they like his one-shot of potential. They like that he can sort of individually carry, but you know as well as I, Samito, that in organized plays, he gets dumpstered in most situations. There's a couple niche situations that you can use him at, and in try-hard ladder games, he gets dumpstered as well. When everyone is sort of doing their own thing in high-level ladder games, he can function okay, but if people are try-harding and coming, we both know he gets dumpstered.
You have to look at how they initially react to big major changes in the game and make educated decisions after. If we nerf Hog more than that, we're jumping the gun and dumpstering a character, and you don't want to do that. That's not good game design. That's really, really bad.
Except on Brig, because you tried to nerf her 19 times and it wasn't enough, so you needed to nerf her faster and bigger. So except for Brig, I'm kidding, obviously, but hey.
You want to avoid doing that at all costs. So we take each hero step by step, analyze how it reacts in the game, take a look at how it plays, and then make an educated decision after the fact. We cannot jump the gun and over dumpster a character.
But that's exactly what we tried to do on Brig, and it didn't work. In seriousness, that is what they tried to do on Brig, and it didn't work. Now the problem is they released a grossly overtuned hero, and it's what they tried to do with double shield stuff too. They tried to nibble around the edges, and it didn't work. So I agree with him fundamentally. It's just we do have a history to look at here.
It's really, really shit game design, and we cannot do that. Reduce D.Va armor by 100. Replace it with health. So she is now 400 health, 200 armor. Because she's
Reduce D.Va armor by 100, replace it with health so that she is now 400 health, 200 armor. Okay, she's had that design before.
She's half and half right now. You increase the size of the dock for the stream? Sure. We will make this a little bit bigger. There you go, guys. So, there's that change. I'm worried. I am a little worried about Orisa Sigma. It's going to be headshot.
That's what we're doing to D.Va? Why? Why are we doing this to D.Va? Is D.Va oppressive? Is D.Va have too much power in games? I agree that D.Va is sort of omnipresent. That's less of a problem now. She's not really omnipresent anymore. For a lot of Overwatch's history, D.Va was omnipresent. but it didn't really feel bad. Yes, it feels bad when D.Va eats your pulse bomb. Yes, it feels bad when you visor and a D.Va shows up in your face and doesn't let you get any value. But like, we are so used to playing around those things at this point of, oh, we have to get a fair amount of DM out before we can make our big plays, or oh, we have to get D.Va to use boosters and then use it where she's not before we can throw our blizzard, that sort of thing. Like, we're so used to that at that point. And what Samito talked about that he so much liked in this game was this concept of like, hey, the beginning of the fight gets us using cooldowns, things like that, and then in the mid fight we end up using our ults. Samito really liked that, and like, D.Va is part of why that happens. And we do kind of like that. So I'm good with D.Va existing. I don't feel like D.Va is a very frequently used hero, but I don't feel like she's a very frequent hero. She's perhaps a powerful hero, but I don't actually think most people for most of Overwatch's history would go, oh, she's the most powerful hero on the field. And even if she is, she's powerful in a way that slows down the game. She's not powerful in a way that takes over the game and doesn't let you play. It feels bad to get hooked by a Roadhog through a wall. Or we can look at other ones like Zarya, where, hey, if you're trying to hard carry a game, take over a game on ladder, you might do so with Zarya or Roadhog. But D.Va slows down the game, and that has a huge impact on the game, but it doesn't feel that bad to the other team other than slowing things down. So I don't really feel this need to nerf D.Va, truth be told. Maybe you guys disagree with me. I could definitely see people disagreeing with me. Like, she does have a lot of influence on the match. It's just a somewhat quiet influence. It's sort of like this Discord that we talked about earlier. If Discord is really, really powerful, well, Defense Matrix is really, really powerful as well. And Defense Matrix on a character that has boosters on a short cooldown is quite powerful. I don't disagree with that. It has a huge amount of impact on the match, but I think that's okay. If I want to, like, you can do this to make her have a little less impact on the match. I suppose that's okay. I'm not really sure I see a need to do this, though. Right, D.Va creates that condition before you can do anything. That's sort of the point. Like, she creates the condition of, hey, it's sort of hard to get stuff done. It's sort of hard to get to the end phase of the fight until the D.Va's been partially dealt with. She's sort of the shield for the team in that sense. Not the Reinhardt shield, but the, like, I'm protecting us against the enemy just pressing the I win buttons, that sort of thing. I'm protecting us from just immediately collapsing to the enemy having a single off angle, that sort of thing.
Shot through Fortify.
So I don't hate the change. I just don't personally see the need for it.
Barrier health to 800.
What's the cooldown?
Fortify reduces 20% instead of 40% incoming damage.
I gotta hear what you want out of this hero.
To top this off, I might reduce barriers cooldown by 1 second. Well, actually, hold on. I know how I want to do this.
I want to see what happens here.
Here's what we're going to do instead.
Okay.
Incoming damage, and then we're going to do this. So the goal of this change, this makes it so that Orisa, as long as she kites properly and tries to get out of fights, right, she can still be played. But if you close the distance on Orisa with Rush or with Dive, or you get around her, you actually have a chance to kill through her abilities, right? And then...
Why? Why do you need a chance to eliminate Orisa through her abilities? I can't eliminate Reaper through Wraith Form. I can't eliminate Mei through Ice Block. Why do I need to be able to? And I already physically can eliminate Orisa through Fortify, like, yes, I can Mercy boost a Barrage and take out an Orisa through her Fortify, so, like, it's already physically possible. I'm totally fine with it being an essential skill, and this does actually go back to MMOs, where it's an essential skill in MMOs to be able to switch past to defensive cooldowns. You see that. My background, I obviously have done some WoW PvP, I've done a lot of Star Wars The Old Republic PvP, and switching past opponents' guarded targets, switching past defensive cooldowns, forcing a defensive cooldown, swapping to a new target, and then swapping back to that target that doesn't have the defensive cooldowns, that was an essential skill. That was also an essential skill to Phase 2, solving, oh wait, we got really good at the meta that immediately followed the playoff finals meta that immediately followed GOATS because we understood the switching past cooldowns. That was something that our Flex DPS and I put together really quickly with our MMO PvP backgrounds and went, hey, that does, like, this is how you win this fight. You force the Wraith cooldowns, you force the Ice Block cooldowns, you force the Fortify cooldowns, you force the D.Va boosters, and then you swap to the next target, but then you have it ticking in your memory that it's there and how recently you forced the cooldown, and if that target even so much as looks at you aggressively, you swap back to it and burn it down and take it off the field. Like, that was a big key to that meta. Obviously, I'm talking a very short meta and a meta that didn't last very long, and one of the early keys. There would have been more keys as the meta continued to evolve, and I'm not even convinced that the comp would have been the meta if that patch had continued. Doesn't matter though. It was the playoff meta that contenders got played on there, and it's the same way that you play Brawl now. The same way that you play more modern brawls that use either Hanzos or Krees with Reinhardts, with D.Vas, with Mays, with Baps, and with Lucios, is you're not actually trying that hard to get an elimination right off their bat. Your Hanzo or Cassidy may be able to do so with off-angle pressure, but your Mei, your Reinhardt, your D.Va, they'll put pressure on you. They might look like they're trying to eliminate you, but they're not really trying to eliminate that opposing Reinhardt. They're putting up the Mei wall to go like, yes, we're putting pressure on the opposing Reinhardt, but really what they're putting up the Mei wall, they're swinging hard into that opposing Reinhardt, but really what they're doing there is they're putting that Mei wall up to go, yeah, if you're bad, we'll just run you over and we'll destroy your Reinhardt, sure, but we expect you guys to go, hey, we'll use our own ice wall. We expect you, which we don't really care about. We expect you guys to respond with, you're going to send your D.Va with boosters up over the wall to defense matrix to protect your Reinhardt, or Zarya bubble to protect your Reinhardt. You can use lamp to protect your Reinhardt. Well, now that's one defensive cooldown off the board in lamp, and it's another key defensive cooldown off the map in your D.Va's boosters. Your D.Va now does not have the ability to engage on us aggressively to play on a deep off angle. She mostly has to play behind her Reinhardt shield, because if she doesn't, we will burn her, and that puts us ahead. Oh, your Mei's off-angling slightly to try to freeze us? Great, we're going to put a ton of pressure into your Mei to force that ice block cooldown, rather than shoot at this Reinhardt who has 500 health plus his barrier and is actually going to take us like 2,000 to 2,500 points of damage to eliminate between his barrier, putting down his barrier to take some on his health while he swings at us, getting healed on that health, his barrier recovering a few hundred HP sometimes while the fight is going on. Like, it's going to take way more damage to take out the Reinhardt that is the obvious target than these targets with their defensive cooldowns. But you don't just sit there and stare at the Mei or stare at the D.Va either. You force the defensive cooldown, you switch past it, and then you switch back. Why do we have to be able to blow up Orisa through her Fortify? I just see no need for that to happen. Overall, you should think of Orisa as a high ground artillery that between Holt's fusion driver and fortified duels in a similar way that an off-tank might, as opposed to establishing a frontline position. She doesn't have to establish a frontline position. She can be your frontline, but she's generally played in a poke comp where your frontline should be further away from their frontline, unless you're trying to overwhelm another poke comp or something like that. Or you're ready for the brawl phase because you've softened them up a bunch. That's a quote from Your Overwatch. We reviewed their Orisa guide. We laughed at it. I actually saw Railth reviewed my tank pairing tier list and heard that quote and was like, is this what he said? And he was thinking it was his thing, and I felt bad because it was actually the Your Overwatch quote there. But that was a fun one to watch as well. You guys should go check that out. He told me he's clipping that, putting together a YouTube video for that, and that should be up in the next day or two on his YouTube channel. That's Real there, who does a fair amount of VOD reviewing, things like that. I suppose you could go find it in the archives on his Twitch channel right now.
CD increase by 2 seconds from 10 to 12. So the goal of this is to enable bunker again, right? This is going to make Orisa have downtime. So you actually have to play smart around walls, around barriers, and that you have to be smart with your cooldown usage so that they don't just win for you, right?
Enable bunker. You have to play smart around your cooldowns. You're trying to make her more ranged effective by weakening her fortify, increasing her barrier strength. But then 2 seconds on the barrier CD? Oh, no. Increasing the cooldown on fortify. So you're really trying to make her bad in the brawl phase. Not that it matters. She should only have one brawl phase in a fight, so she doesn't need fortify twice. Her fortify could be 10 seconds, it could be 15 seconds. It really doesn't matter. She's really only going to get a fortify once in a fight if it's being used correctly. Barrier CD reduced by 10 seconds. Or barrier CD is reduced by 1 second. I don't know that I want her to be this constant shield. I think players might want her to be that at a low level. I think this would be popular at sort of low points on the ladder where people are like, they don't understand the transition from poke to brawl phase and they want to be able to put a barrier down and shoot and put a barrier down and shoot, and they want to have huge amount of barrier uptime. But I don't need that. I kind of like her being a bit more explosive. With her, hey, she drops a pretty powerful barrier, that sort of thing. I'm a little bit afraid that this is a return of Barrier Watch, which is the exact opposite of what you want here. Like, you don't like how powerful double shield is, but you're saying you want bunker back, and you're making the shielding better and making her brawl phase worse. And I don't actually see a good reason to make her brawl phase worse. And more shield uptime, that's not great either. Now it's even harder to outpoke the bunker there. Like, she just cannot lose poke battles, sort of is where we're going. And I don't know that you want that. I sort of like poke dive comps being able to threaten poke comps in the poke phase. I like brawl poke comps being able to threaten the poke comp in the brawl phase. If you make it where the poke comp is just too much better than hybrid comps at poke, which is what you do if you make Orisa too good at the poke phase, you're going to be a situation where you decrease comp diversity because the other comp just leans harder into their brawl aspects. They go, we just lose too hard in the poke phase, so instead of running our Casty in our brawl comp, we're going to run Reaper Mei. Instead of running Echo or Hanzo in our dive comp, we're just going to run Tracer Sombra. I don't necessarily like that. I think that's bad. Make Orisa hit scan with those changes. Yeah, let's not do that.
This enables the bunker play style, which means she'll still be
Orisa for sure doesn't feel like a bunker tank anymore, more like a find cool angle and spam, then hope your off tank plus code is the same. I mean, that's what she's supposed to do. That's how you should be playing poke tanks. Like, that's what you want to do with her. You don't want her to be able to do that and to be able to brute force her way through super heavy chokes, and that becomes a little bit of a concern. Is she too good at both? And right now they've made her sort of okay at fortify with brute forcing chokes, while also making her sort of okay at the poke phase with her shield, and that's kind of okay. And here they're trying to make her way better in the poke phase, where Samito's trying to make her better, not way better, but better in the poke phase and worse in the brawl phase. And you can do that. Like, you can do that, but I don't think that's going to feel better. I think this is going to be like, this will more be like when Widows dominated the meta, where it's like, we can't walk through the open, it's too dangerous, the other team is just too good, we have to use our own shields and outpoke them. I'm sorry, but this game does not need to be a game about, yes, let's stand behind shields and shoot at the other team's shields. Like, I hate that. And we know better than that at this point.
viable on first.
And I think we already have, if you do want, hey, weaker brawl, stronger poke, you already have that with Sigma, right? Like, Sigma is a good poke tank for damage, but Sigma's brawl phase kind of sucks. Rock is a little better as you get closer because it's a little easier to hit type thing with that wind up and everything, but like, no fortify on Sigma. Sigma gets crushed by Reinhardt. We could have a second harder poke tank like Orisa or like Sigma that's got a weak brawl phase, but I'm currently okay with the design space of those two. One's a little bit better in the brawl in the form of Orisa and has a bit more barrier in the form of Orisa, but Sigma can kite better. I'd actually probably be more interested in looking at Orisa's movement rate while firing and doing more tweaking around that personally, but that's not where he went, and I'm not going to open that can of worms.
First point defense maps like King's Row. You could play her on high ground there. You could play her on Anubis. You could play her on all the traditional bunker maps. She actually would be better to enable a different playstyle of comp.
And I actually disagree with him. Like, he said that, like, you have to think about your barriers more now, and people are going to think about their barriers less. If you decrease the barrier cooldown and you increase the barrier health, people are going to go into, my job is to have barrier down as often as possible and be shooting at the other Orisa's barrier or shooting at the other team's tank as much as possible and just maximizing uptime. Well, no, that's not what we want. What we want is the more calculated, hey, I drop a barrier, this is my explosive window of I'm going to shoot, I'm going to do pretty good damage, the other team should pay attention to me. If they don't, I'll hurt them, and if they do, my off-angling Ash will take them out or shoot from here, sort of thing. But if I time this wrong when my off-angling Ash can't open the window, can't open the angle, well then, I didn't get a ton of value done, and we potentially have to wait for my next barrier. That's a fine way for her to work, and it's kind of how she currently does.
And you could play dive into it and actually win, but you don't inherently win. Like, it's whoever sets up well, whoever...
Oh, you're wanting to make dive better into it. Yeah, you make pure dive better into it by doing this, because she's weaker in the actual brawl phase. But again, I kind of like where hybrid comps are right now.
Actually uses cooldowns properly. The fun chess of Overwatch.
Well, using cooldowns properly would be, hey, we got out Fortify and then we swapped past the target. Like, that's how you use cooldowns properly. Don't give me this, oh, it's not proper in the cooldown.
Watch that made everyone fall in love with this game. It's what made the game so great. It's what made the game of the year. There were all these options that if you messed up, you could really look internally and say, damn, like, I misplayed that. It's not that he has a bullshit ability that's just too strong.
But that's still true.
Well, I need to do this differently.
There's still always things that you can do differently.
If I have a support alive, it's okay. I can force Fortify here. If I want to attempt to kill her through this, I can. She doesn't reduce that much damage. I can aim for the head. I have options as a player. There's all these different ways a fight can play out, and it actually allows bunker comps, traditional bunker, to be played, not annoying ass double shield. So I think that's...
No. Like, I suppose it does allow traditional bunker of people stacked together. What are you referring to here, Samito? When you say, like, traditional bunker versus annoying double shield, do you just mean everyone stacks together? Because that's just worse than off-angling. And, like, if you make Orisa good enough to enable traditional bunker, you've just made double shield even more oppressive when people instead go, well, we're going to play double shield from two separate angles instead. Like, no.
That's a good way to take Orisa. I think you make her more of the bunker tank that allows her to play solo play styles a little bit more, but also enable the team like this, not some body brawl tank where they just really did not think anything through when changing that, unfortunately.
Well, they've struggled with her, and again, Realth's talked about this a lot. Realth is sort of the person who spent a ton of time talking about Orisa, which makes it fun and is why I'm referencing him. There's other people who obviously really like poke comps, poke metas. Thor also quite a bit likes poke metas. I really like my dive metas, my dive hybrid metas, that sort of thing. Everyone has, their favorites. But, like, you look at this and you whatever, it doesn't matter.
I think so. It allows her to play solo play styles a little bit more, but also enable the team like this, not some body brawl tank where they just...
Yeah, the reason that she's that body brawl tank is they want her to be able to sort of break chokes, and poke comps sort of need that. We have a super chat coming in for $1.99 from Adam in Charge saying Samito likes winners. I hear you, Adam. Maybe Samito does like winners. That's just fine. To me, it sounds like Samito doesn't like it when there's any level of things that stop his clicking on heads from just eliminating people. That would be, let's get rid of Briggs, let's nerf D.Va, let's nerf Fortify because I don't like it when I shoot at things and they survive. Let's get rid of Echo having an extra life and duplicate completely. Like, Lamp needs to be a damage reduction rather than this. This sort of seems to me like Samito would have been complaining in the first 2 years of Overwatch about, oh my goodness, Rez shouldn't be in the game and D.Va is way too powerful. And those were garbage takes back then, and these takes are a little better. There's some stuff in here that I could get behind. This isn't how I do Hanzo, but I'm okay with it. I'm actually okay doing this temporarily for like 3 months. This would need more changes, so I'll give it a dash. This I really can't get behind, though it's not terrible. I'm good with this, truth be told. There's not a good reason to do this. This is bad. And I'd nerf him differently, so I'm gonna say no to this as well. So like, I don't hate everything that I'm seeing here, but this does sound like I'm upset that things aren't just getting eliminated when I'm shooting at them. Well, yeah, okay. If you don't want fights to resolve in 1 second, you want the things that make Overwatch, which you do say that you want. That was one of your complaints about how LAMP works. This argument doesn't really make sense.
They just really did not think anything through when changing that,
Okay.
Unfortunately. So, because, yeah, the problem with Orisa has always been Fortify. And if you nerf that, at worst, this is a change that will make her not be that viable. But her pick rate is so low, and she's not that liked as a hero. But either way, I think Sigma is so strong that you can stack him with her, and she'll still be good on the maps where Bunker is really, really strong.
So it's you, Winston soft dives you and gets away. Pretty much.
Which is where she's pretty much where she should be played anyway. So, all right.
Okay. Again, she sort of needs it if she's going to have any ability to break through some of the harder chokes in the game. Hanamura first, to a lesser degree Anubis first, some of those harder chokes. She sort of needs that, and that's the tough design space that she's in. I don't mind her being sort of a poke brawl hybrid, which is sort of where she is right now. You can adjust her power if you need to, but I think they've already done that adequately with her Fortify, effectively. Not with her Fortify, with her Halt nerfs.
Now, this is where it gets tricky, chat. Sigma, okay?
Oh!
Sigma is a really tough character to look at. I think he does too much at once.
Yeah.
I don't want to remove Grass from the game, even though he would still be really good without it.
Yeah. He would still be good without it.
I think... Does his shield recharge while he's grasping?
Yes.
Hello. Okay, so now we grasp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts, so...
It's recharging while he's gone. It's just, there's always a timer when you pull it back before it starts charging, and that timer is ticking.
You need to delay the regen on his shield. You need to reduce his uptime. So that would be a good way to start. So here's what we're going to do. Okay? Whilst Grasp is active, shield regeneration timer does not start. So basically, if you use Grasp, you actually have to pay a price for it, right? What makes Sigma so dumb to duel against right now is that he can proc his Grasp and his shields automatically recharge while he's doing that.
That is the hero. The point of how Sigma is designed, Sigma is very hard to remove from Sigma's positions because Sigma is all about balancing your resources. You may think Sigma has too many resources, and maybe that's what Samito thinks, and that's why he's targeting one of the resources. But the point of Sigma is I'm going to juggle between my shield, which can regenerate while it's not out, my shift cooldown, my hands, my grasp, which is a cooldown, which generates when I'm not using it, and my health, including that the top 100 of it is shields that will regenerate, my grasp, which will feed back into my health pool here for more, though these portions won't regenerate, and cover. Like, Sigma juggling between these 4 resources, 5 resources, 3 resources, however you want to think about them, is the hero. That what is makes Sigma Sigma. So, like, I don't think the place that I want to target is, oh, hey, let's go ahead and... What do I want to put here? Let's go ahead and make it so that the shield doesn't regenerate while we're using Grasp because we want to nerf to Sigma's total sustain. You don't nerf Sigma's total sustain. If you want to nerf Sigma, what you do is you look at it and go, wait, Sigma shuts some things down with Rock, which is a stun. Shut some things down with Barrier, which would be, the experimental barrier. So experimental, which is a barrier, a shield, effectively. We'll call that barrier. And shut some things down with grasp, which is a sort of defense matrix ult-eating infinite damage type thing. But you can block you can cancel some things with a stun, you can cancel some things with the shield, and you can cancel some things, like you can go, hey, I'm going to block a Deadeye with the shield if I needed to, or a Widow Shot with the shield. I can I can effectively shut down a Dragon Blade or a High Noon or whatever with a rock. I can also shut down that Deadeye with my Sigma hands if I want to. I can't shut down the Dragon Blade with anything except my rock, but I can shut down the High Noon with multiple different options. I can slow down the Visor with multiple options. I can slow down, I can shut down the Barrage with 2 of my options. I could potentially rock her to mess that up, or I could potentially get hands in the way there. If you wanted to hurt Sigma, which you'd probably do, I probably wouldn't attack Sigma's rotation here. I'd probably say, does Sigma need to be able to have such a diverse kit for shutting stuff down? Unfortunately, I think the answer is yes, because D.Va shuts down almost all of that stuff with just DM. That's kind of the issue. It took something with this many different things, that some of which are overlapping in what they can shut down, to compete with D.Va's DM. But Sigma also has pretty darn good damage and range. Limited, but range to go with that. So it's a tough equation. D.Va's kind of a necessary thing for the game, I believe. And I think Sigma does an okay job of going, hey, I can also exist here and fulfill D.Va's role, and that's why Sigma is now a competitor to D.Va. But Sigma had to be able to do a lot of different things in order to be that competitor. So I think the experimental shield class barrier is the main one, the biggest offender, and is probably the most of what makes Sigma Sigma. Does Sigma even need rock? Like, yes, obviously, Sigma really likes rock. Sigma needs rock to be able to duel people. Sigma would be too easy to remove if they didn't have rock. Yeah, probably. I guess my point that I'm getting at here is I don't think attacking, like, I want you to have a little bit less experimental barrier to play with. Like, so what? Like, oh, you're juggling your resources properly and I don't like that. Like, I'd be more interested in going, hey, you can use a resource and it's not enough of an all-in committal on your ability to then block things, to then stop things, to then shut down plays. But like, that's kind of the same as D.Va, except that D.Va's defense matrix gets used in ticks of 1/4 of her DM at a time and regenerates really quickly, whereas Sigma's has split up his cancels into 3 different categories, though admittedly he does ultimately get the ability to cancel more things. D.Va can't do a ton. D.Va using a boop isn't nearly as effective as Sigma using a rock against a Dragon Blade, for example. So probably something like this where I go, hey, I probably don't do this. I probably look at Sigma and go, maybe we touch rock cooldown, something along those lines. I don't think there's a ton of other places to hit on Sigma. You can slow down shield recharge rate, like you can slow down the sustain to make Sigma weaker, but that's sort of Sigma's identity. I don't really like that. That's sort of like the right way to play Sigma, and I don't necessarily like attacking the right way to play Sigma, what is Sigma's design space there. Though ultimately, if you need to give him less power, maybe that is what you do. You could nerf Sigma's damage if it needs a nerf. You sort of run into his dual power. I don't want his dual power to be so low that one person can extract him. You follow what I'm saying? I don't want a Sombra to show up and easily extract a Sigma sort of thing. So I'm a little hesitant to nerf net left click. I'm more interested in nerfing Rock's cooldown, because if you make Rock's cooldown longer, he can still have it for duels, but it's a bigger committal to have used it, and he's going to use it less for damage, less to finish people off, and more to go, maybe still to use to finish people off, but you have to be sure, and more to go, hey, I have this as an answer to abilities, and if you get it out, it's a pretty big cost to get it out. You can Flux Blade. True.
Which dramatically increases his uptime. And what was so frustrating and what made Double Shield so good, and this is what the developers did not understand, no matter how loud the Contenders players and pro players screamed at them, myself being one of them, is that what made Double Shield so broken was never the barriers. It was the sustain abilities that allowed Orisa, Sigma, and Bap to synergize to a point where they had 100% uptime, right?
Yeah.
dive.
Sigma kind of needs that, though, if Sigma's going to be able to not just stack on your team. And I'm sorry, but the game is boring if you're supposed to stack everyone together. Like, yes, weakening Sigma's sustain, it's just weird because, like, you want to weaken Sigma's sustain and you wanted to weaken Orisa's Fortify, and I see it now because you don't like Fortify. Like, I was looking at that as you don't like Fortify as a brawl cooldown, but you don't like Fortify being used effectively as a poke cooldown to protect yourself, which is a thing that happens. In poke v poke, you end up in situations where, hey, Orisa's barrier doesn't hold long enough, so you use a little bit of Sig barrier because there's like a 2-second cooldown, and then you pull back the Sig barrier and you throw the fresh barrier. And then once that Orisa barrier breaks, oh, it's 6 seconds until the next one, so maybe use Sigma hands. And then you throw that Orisa barrier down. And then maybe, okay, now we're in a situation where it breaks, and okay, now we're going to use Fortify, and that's the cooldown that we're sort of using to protect ourselves and the team while we continue to poke. So that's more what he's getting into here. But like, that's stacked double shield, which again isn't as powerful as playing split double shield. And Orisa, and I guess if you nerf Sigma sustain, you could potentially hurt his ability to sustain on an off angle, but that's just going to cause you to stack more. I don't think you like that. I don't think that's good or healthy for the game, truth be told. I don't actually think it would accomplish it either. Like, the nerf that's being described here, I don't think it's the right nerf, and I also don't think it's strong enough to do what he wants it to do. Like, delaying shields regenerating starting that much is not actually a very big nerf. Like, I went into it a bit because I think it's betraying his design space, but I don't actually care that much because it's just not going to work.
Always had downtime. If you jumped in, you would be punishable for misusing your cooldowns if you went in too deep. If you play Rush, Reinhardt's shield is finite, right? He can't shoot from range. You have to make smart decisions. That's what made the game so much fun. But with Sigma, you essentially were able to have 100% uptime, which made the character unpunishable. So it didn't matter how smart you were at the character, how good you were at the character. Its skill floor was automatically higher because the hero just allowed you to have 100% uptime. There should not be a character in this game that has 100% uptime. If there is a character that has 100% uptime or near it, it ends up being hard meta because the most consistent things in this game have always dominated the game. That's why Brig is so good.
I mean, that's not necessarily true. I get what he's saying, and Sigma does have very, very high uptime. Sigma does not have 100% uptime. Sigma does use the corners, for example, as part, or cover, as part of their rotation, of how they stay in the fight, of how they juggle their resources. Sigma, also has intentionally built in downtime and a pretty long delay between shots to encourage this corner use, and you have downtime in the fact of your character literally just can't act while those shots are out. And you could call that, well, everyone has rate of fire stuff, etc., but Sigma's is slow for a reason. But what you also have is, again, Sigma doesn't have a ton of burst power. If we take Sigma's closest comparisons as heroes, they're Orisa, Sigma, and Roadhog. These would be the poke tanks, and yes, these would be the poke tanks here. Again, some people would say, you can go, okay, wait, why are you comparing Orisa to 2 off tanks? Why are you comparing Orisa to 2 off tanks rather than comparing to Ball, Reinhardt, and Winston? We could go that route, but I think what's more interesting here is comparing them using Wraith's Lens and comparing these as, hey, these are the poke enabling tanks. And what we see here is Roadhog is the most explosive. Roadhog is the most explosive of, hey, you open an angle, you have powerful hooks, you have a slow rate of fire, you're kind of weak after your hook is on cooldown. Yeah, you can still eliminate people with right clicks, but it's a pretty slow fire rate. You've got the reloads. You have huge power spikes where Hog's power is up here when you have hook, down here when you don't have hook, or maybe down here when you don't have hook, and down here when you don't have hook and breather, that sort of thing. So Roadhog plays very spiky, uses those off angles, whatever. Orisa is going to be like, hey, less spiky. Orisa will go, hey, she's most powerful when she puts down that fresh shield, when she has halt available, that sort of thing. She's less powerful when those go away. She's able to maintain pretty good uptime between shields, between fortify. She does have a long reload, but so she's not as explosively powerful as Roadhog, but she maintains less uptime than Sigma because she is not able to corner peek the way Sigma is, or even the way Roadhog is able to throw her shots because she has that movement speed nerf and because she has a very high fire rate with, not terribly high damage compared to Sigma or Orisa on her left clicks. So, okay, that makes sense. She's able to maintain pretty good uptime with that barrier, with that fortify if she needs to, but she is not as but she does not have the explosive power that Roadhog has, nor does she have the full uptime that Sigma has. Sigma, on the other hand, is going to be if this is Orisa's peak power, this is Roadhog's peak power, this is more Roadhog's average power. Down here, let's actually change this. So let's go Roadhog, Orisa, Sigma, and we'd be in a situation where we'll do their peak powers. Roadhog's peak power is up here. Orisa's peak power is down here, and Sigma's peak power is maybe here. We'll just do this. But Roadhog's average power, or base power, I don't really care, is going to be down here. Orisa's average power is going to be down here, and Sigma's average power is going to be down here. That sort of thing. And that's sort of the balance of how these work, and these are a scale, and that is fine. So I look at this and go, I don't necessarily have an issue. I kind of like Orisa being the balanced one here, and we don't want to. We're talking about, oh, they're unpunishable, they never have an opening. Well, these two, yeah, are somewhat going to look like that because that's the design. They're using these two, not Roadhog. You could have another thing more like Sigma and cause it to be even more in this direction, but I don't think we necessarily need to. I think, again, this is Sigma's design space to specifically be very high uptime. Like, that is Sigma's design space, and Sigma should be paying for that, with Sigma's peaks being lower. Now, you could say that's not true, because Sigma's true peak is with Flux, and Flux is way better than a whole hog. Discussion for a different time. Mercy and Lucio have more uptime than Brig by a lot. Oh, absolutely. It was really odd of him to mention Brig there, as like, oh, Brig has too much uptime. Brig is like donating uptime, accepting a fair amount of loss of uptime for the sake of your flex support having more uptime. That's not really real to say like, oh, Brig is huge uptime.
Good, right? She like literally has such a huge range with massive uptime and peeling whilst healing, which has just been proven to be fundamentally broken for the game.
No, it hasn't.
Like if your hero fundamentally, and the fundamentals are the abilities synergizing together or stacking at the same time, doing more than one thing at once. For example, Sigma can grasp and regen his shield, and then he can go back to shooting at
Oh, so this is your theory of the game. Your theory of the game is if two things are happening at once, it's OP. Then you must hate Zen. You must absolutely hate Zenyatta and how he can have his orbs out there doing things. His orb can be helping his Tracer duel while he is poking at an Ashe, or his orb can be, on the target that just got pulse bombed, while his Harmony orb is on the Genji while he is spamming out the Hog over there. Like, three different things can happen at once. You must just hate Zenyatta, right? Right? Why is Zenyatta not on this list? If the idea is someone doing multiple things at once is the worst thing in the world. Or Lucio, who can be healing his Reinhardt or speeding his Reinhardt while also booping the opposing Reinhardt or the opposing so-and-so into a pit, that must be the worst thing in the world, right? Like, that's a terrible fundamental theory of Overwatch. Zen is pretty good.
shielding at the same time, and by the time you break his shield again, he's going to have grasp again, and it's
And like, you must hate Orisa and Sigma, who can put up a shield, so can shield and shoot at the same time, right? Whereas Reinhardt is fine because Reinhardt has to shield or swing. Like, that is what this theory would lead me to, but I'm not really seeing those hard attacked as concepts.
an endless cycle. Heroes that fundamentally operate like that will break the game, and it's been proven that they do that. So you want to reduce that in your game so that you add healthy counterplay in the game. The game doesn't feel oppressive to play. Heroes feel...
That said, I do agree that we've had hero creep, ability creep. I'm not a huge fan of, oh, this ability does 6 different things. Yeah.
Equally matched, and it's about how you play rather than what you pick, and that's what makes Overwatch so brilliant. So I think this would be a nice little minor nerf to Sigma that wouldn't dumpster the character, but
it's a very minor nerf to Sigma, to be truth be told. Like, very minor, and I don't really care. It's just, yeah.
It definitely helps reduce that 100% uptime so that you actually have counterplay.
Vault Doom 2? Okay.
To play the game, better ways to outplay him, etc., etc. That's why Brig never had downtime. Well, Brig has downtime, but like Brig's fundamentals is not her downtime because Inspire's only up about 40 to 50, maybe
Yeah, I want to hear more about this.
55% of the time if you're
Okay.
playing really well. It's that she heals and peels at the same time, and that's what makes her so broken. You can't have a hero do both. Like, Ana has to choose to sleep dart someone or to...
I mean, I can nade the fighting Reinhardts, and I'm both hurting the opposing Reinhardt and help it healing my Reinhardt. Like, I can do that.
heal her team. And that decision making is what makes players like ML7 the best players in the world, because they understand exactly where they need to play, who they need to heal, when they need to peel, when they need to sleep, when they need to nade, and that makes the skill ceiling almost it makes the skill ceiling literally exponentially higher, which makes people want to continue to grind the game to achieve perfection, right? And to achieve skill and fair play, and it's just fun to play that way, and it's not fun to play a watered down boring game. So
Lucio does heal and peel. Lucio, Zen, lots of heroes do it.
All right, who's next? Yeah, and wait, can I? Yeah. Also, shield drops while grasping. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah.
You don't want to be able to pull shield back while grasping. Okay. It slightly raises the skill cap in that you know you're grasping, you pull the shield down, that sort of thing.
While grasping. I think...
Oh, you want to forcibly drop it. You don't want to take away people's ability to pull it down. You don't... I thought he was going a different direction. Okay.
So we can take that out, actually, and do these two things. We don't have to increase the regeneration cooldown.
Okay.
If it forcibly drops while grasping and the regeneration timer doesn't start, that will give him downtime, which means he actually is killable. So yeah, we might need...
That's a nerf that actually hurts his flexibility a little bit, and that might make more sense. Not for the reason that he's going at it, but it hurts his ability to block two different angles at once. To go, we're rotating forward, we are rotating our team forward like this, and I'm going to put a shield up in this direction and put grasp up in this direction as we're rotating here to block that out. And that could be fair. Him being able to block two different abilities rather effectively, or two different directions rather effectively at once, I understand a complaint that that's too strong.
Need to increase shield's health a little bit at some point to compensate, but I don't think we need to do that right now. I want to wait and see what happens. So I'm also not nerfing Zen, because if you nerf Zen's ability to get peeled by a lot of these characters, it actually makes him a little bit more balanced. So again, you don't want to nerf Zen yet, because he's only really
okay, so you are talking about Zen.
Strong because these two characters are just fundamentally overpowered as fuck.
Zen doesn't care whether Bap is powerful or not. Like, the Zen and Bap are competition. Zen really doesn't care that much whether Bap is powerful. Bap being powerful is not making Zen powerful. Yes, Bap and Zen are sometimes run together as a support line, but like, again, if Bap is bad, you just run Mercy plus Zen. Like, Zen does not need Bap to be good, and Zen does not need a bunch of Bap on the other team to be good. Yeah, I'm okay with arguments that Brig makes Zen good, because Zen's weakness is a really big weakness, and that's why he's allowed to be so powerful with Discord Orb and Transcendence and the amount of damage that he does, and Brig does such a good job of covering that weakness while not being too weak herself. I can accept that argument. I'm going to need more defense of this, like, oh, it's, Bap has much at all to do with Zen being too powerful, and nerfing Bap is going to maybe make Zen worse. No. I've heard it said that with time, Zen always returns to the meta. Yeah. We talked about that on the latest Collegiate Overwatch podcast that we did over on the Collegiate Overwatch Twitch. And yeah, it was, I forget which player, but they talked about a balance between, I believe it was these three heroes that established the meta. And it wasn't the place to go into it at the time of exactly how these three form a balance to establish any sort of meta, like the strength and weakness of these three heroes. It would have something I'd have liked to pick their brain on or further. I want to say it was, I don't remember if it was Kashir from the University of Texas Dallas or EMF from UC Santa Cruz that was talking about it. I'd have liked to pick their thoughts further. Maybe I'll have them on at some point to further flesh out exactly where they want to go with that and how they want to defend that. But yeah, Zen does sneak his way into a lot of metas if given time, because we eventually figure out how to protect him well enough, or that he's worth the risk of playing, because Discord Orb is that good. And Zen's damage is pretty damn good as well. Pretty darn good as well.
So if you nerf these two characters, it makes Zen as punishable as he should be, and it makes the game a lot more balanced. I honestly might wait on the Hanzo changes, but I want to reduce Storm Arrows just in case.
Do we have more?
And I also want to do this to Lucio.
Oh, what are we doing to Lucio? I'm good with a Lucio buff.
Numbers real quick.
I'm good with a Lucio buff. What do we got?
If we remove the peel ability of Brig and Bap, or we reduce it, Lucio should be able to be that peel character in his own way.
Okay.
16 a second to... This is where it gets tough. This is where it gets real tweaky. I'm not going to overbuff this because we already buffed the radius. Do I need to do this?
This is a huge buff.
I don't know if we do.
This is a huge buff that you're giving to Lucio right now. 12 to 15 meters. I don't care about the healing. I care about the speed. I do care about the healing, but increasing the distance from 12 to 15 meters is a huge buff to Lucio's power. Because again, when you increase the diameter of something from 12 to 15 meters, you're not adding, oh, well, I just increased. It's not like, oh, it's just a shot in this direction. It's an increase of this. Well, let me go here. Like, we're going like this to like this. And, well, if we look at how much blue we have versus how much purple we have, or pink we have, whatever we want to call that, I'll just shade my blue real quick. And now I'll shade my purple. And I probably made my pink, purple, red, not really purple, pink or red, whatever we want to call this, too big. This is more than 2 meters. But you actually see how much total red we got here. Even if I shave this and make this smaller, so let's cut this a little bit and make this even like this. And just consider the pink there. Ignore the black. That's a lot of space. That is a lot of volume that we added to Lucio. That is a lot of power. He's going to get more heals in the game. He's going to get speed on people faster. Like, that is a lot of power. I definitely wouldn't increase any other numbers while giving him that there. Another wonderful image. Thank you, Magdalena.
We're going to wait on this. We're going to increase the radius.
Let's do the full calculation using 4 divided by 3 pi x the radius cubed. We're not going to. I wanted to do a visualization there so that people could see it.
Yes, for now, and that's all we're gonna do. I don't want to mess with numbers because this is big utility right here.
Good.
Right?
I'm glad you recognize that.
It's really risky to mess with utility and mess with numbers at the same time because that's how you can accidentally break something and make it overpowered as fuck. So we need patience on this.
The difference in area to Lucio's AoE from 12 to 15 is 113 to 177. Yeah, that's a big increase. I appreciate you putting those numbers out there, Jacob Free. I have not checked those numbers, but that is what Jacob Free is sharing. The numbers are there.
Yes. This is going to take time, so we're going to wait and see how this patch reacts, and then if we need to do this again, we will. But I don't think we need to yet. I think that we should wait on seeing how that plays because this could end up being a very big buff.
This would be huge for Brawl. This would be huge for Brawl because Brawl is going to get more Lucio value while being spread out. It might be huge for other comps as well, like Dive, but it would be huge for Brawl because Brawl wants to take off angles, and that's a little anti-synergistic with Lucio. Making Lucio have a bigger area that its aura affects. Oh, cool, Brawl spreading out doesn't lose some of its value from spreading out. It always gains more value by spreading out or it generally gains more value by spreading out and taking angles than it loses by not having the Lucio aura affect as many of them. But now it would affect an extra person on average, we'll say, and that's a big deal.
Look like it, but again, this makes him much more consistent, and consistency is the best.
But I'm okay with this, but I want to see the Mercy buff because Lucio's got more playtime than Mercy in real play.
thing in this game. Cannot iterate that enough. Consistency.
And it's possible that the Brig nerf and the Bap nerf would cause Mercy to come in because those are competitors for her. Brig is a competitor to her in the form of they're both main supports, and Bap is a competitor to her in the form of they're both poke supports. So yeah, it's possible that these would bring in more Mercy, but uh, Lucio already sees more playtime, and the nerf to Brig already brings in more Lucio potentially. So like we're buffing Lucio while nerfing one of his competitors, but we're not buffing the competitor that sees even less playtime than Lucio.
Consistent characters have always been the characters that get picked. So we're gonna move on. So okay, I think that's
A full dive in this situation, yeah, you'd be looking at Lucio if you vaulted Brig as the only one that could full peel the dive. But the thing is, supports aren't the only ones that... Supports are the first line of peeling defense, or they're the last line of peeling defense, depending on how you want to think about it. But positioning of the support that would be the one getting dove, as well as positioning of the team to control the lanes to not have those people get past them in the first place, or not get past them with full resources is kind of it. And Mercy can peel against a diver just fine. You give a Tracer versus a Mercy boosted Zen, yeah, Tracer can absolutely win that fight, but Zen can absolutely win that fight too. And if they did any job of getting resources out of Tracer on the way in, that Tracer is going to be terrified of that Mercy boosted Zen that is being, that is there. Similar thing with like, oh, a monkey is jumping on your Ana misses the sleep dart. Mercy can keep Ana alive for quite a bit until the fight changes. So, Mercy is peel.
That's it for now. I mean, I don't think there's any other big changes that I would want to make initially. I think,
and Ball just has a terrible time when Mercy shows up in time to help out Zen, because Ball just doesn't have the power that Tracer does to sustain to win against that Zen. Zen just crushes Ball in that situation. Again, I'm still assuming a relatively high-level skill, not necessarily GM, but like even Diamond Masters, maybe even higher plat for both parties, as well as the Mercy making it there before the Zen's at 5 HP.
I think this would open up the game a ton. We might need to revert the Zarya nerfs. I'm thinking about that. I think I want to revert the Zarya nerfs because I think that D.Va would just be broken. Like, even if we nerf D.Va, I think Zarya could use a little bit to compensate. Just to enable the rush comp and enable Reinhardt a little.
Is she broken in a bad way and you have already nerfed her? Like, again, I'm still not sold on this, like, we seem to be in this place of we need the hero. Yeah, well, never. I'll let it go.
We can see some counterplay, but I'm also gonna wait on that a little bit because if Brig Zen and Bap Zen don't dominate the game, it opens the door for Zarya way more. And I think smarter Zarya players would do a good job of dealing with that shit. So yeah, this is what we got, guys. Cassidy's son right click. I don't think we need to change that yet either. I want to wait. I want to wait and I want to see how actually, you know what? Cass is tough because here's the problem with Cass. He has negative win rates across every rank. He requires immense peel. I think he would honestly be fine the way he is.
Okay, let's hear it.
Especially with the hit scan range nerfs. I don't want to change him yet. I want to wait. I want to take away.
Are you thinking buffing or nerfing?
Away the 225, but I want to wait. So yeah.
You want to take away the 225? Okay.
This is my patch. This is 10 things that would make this game 3 to 4 times better in the meantime while they don't have any content coming in.
3 to 4 times better. Okay.
Now, the goal of this is to open up the game, to make the original tanks that everyone loves to play synergize incredibly well together. And this patch would make the game play how it played last October when the game was regarded to be in its best state of all time. I can guarantee you, with my pride, I would bet you any amount of money. I bet my retirement. I bet my life. I bet my everything that if they push this patch through, Overwatch would be considered one of the best games on the market once again.
I want to evaluate that. Okay. Is this... He's got a lot of video left. I guess I want to evaluate it, yep.
I'd stake my career on it. I would stake my entire career on it because the game would feel so much better. Now, granted, it would probably take I think I would need 1 or 2 more patches past this point to really fine tune it. But
Okay, you're
this would
backing off a
address
little
80
bit,
to
but I hear
85%
what
of
you're
the
saying.
issues in the
That's
game.
fine.
And then there'd probably be 1 or 2 more tweak follow-up patches in the following weeks to really get the game where it would need to be. But this is step 1. This is how you set the foundation to build a masterpiece.
This would
Right
be the
here.
biggest patch
And
we'd
you
seen
know
in a
what?
huge
I'll
amount of
send it
time
to
if it
Blizzard.
happened.
I'll do
Like
something, but I think it's
10
incredibly
different heroes
unlikely
being
that they
adjusted
would listen. So
and significant
I've done
changes
these
to some of
before,
them.
and
Some of
I
these are
just kind of get
small.
laughed out of the room, even though time and time again.
Well, yeah, dude. I mean, if your headliner is let's vault Brig, of course you're going to get laughed out of the room. And you've had this take forever, and you have had some justification of, hey, you wanted to get rid of her from the get-go when she really was too powerful, as did a lot of people. And we could have stopped a lot of hemorrhaging of the game potentially by doing that. So I actually don't necessarily disagree with that. But you've pretended that she's the most evil thing ever by and large, even after the rework made her significantly different and still powerful, but not like bad for the game. Again, I'm still looking for this why she's so bad for the game. And I'm sure Samito's put other content out there that explains that. I know Samito is well known for disliking Brig, so I'm sure that's out there. Maybe someone can explain it in chat. I don't want to go find it right now because that isn't a good thing to do live on the video, but like, of course, if it's we're gonna delete Brig, like you have to ease people into this. You can't go to Blizzard with such an extreme change, saying delete a hero, have less content, that'll make your game bigger. They're not going to listen to you. You have to ease people. This is how when you're convincing anyone. This might be the change that you actually need to make, but you have to build up some trust, get them to work with you. You have to do something like, hey, I don't like this change, but this is a smaller change that, like, yeah, this is the way to do it, or this is the way to do it. You have to do smaller changes like this so you don't absolutely destroy your credibility because they don't have any reason to trust you, to believe you, to whatever. You're a streamer that's in some ways perhaps trying to be sensationalist because that drives engagement, which I totally get. I'm not knocking that. Samito has figured out how to make streaming content creation work for him on a game that is struggling with viewership. So I'm absolutely not knocking that. But like, of course you're not going to get developer appeal with that. But you know that. You know that. His personal vendetta against her weakens all of his arguments. Right.
I was right about Double Shield not going away. I was right about Brig still being broken. I was right about Bap.
I'm sorry. How many ladder games? What percentage of your ladder games actually use Orisa Sigma, guys? I ask all levels of ladder this. I can contenders players that I have here, collegiate players that I have here, bronze players that I have here. How many of your games involve your team running Orisa and Sigma at the same time in either direction? 5%? 8%? It's not 40%. It went away. Now, I know what he means. He means it didn't immediately go away there, but like, ugh. And yes, it was around for too long. In GOATS, a super long GOATS meta that was painful for a lot of people from the get-go, but painful for a lot of people with how long it went on of DPS heroes not being playable, followed by a double shield meta that was like 9 months, was too much, and that was bad, and they did need to just use the harder axe to quickly break that meta. So I'm not being totally fair to him.
Like being freaking busted if we buffed him even in the slightest, in which case we did. I was right about Hanzo not being a good character. His stats are all down.
Yeah, we all called that. We all called that on Hanzo. I'm totally in agreement with you on that one, Samito. Hanzo, since the rework was a huge question mark of you got rid of Scatter Arrow and somehow made him stronger. Like what? Please don't. Like please don't do that. Not only stronger, a lot stronger. And he has quietly been a like top 4 DPS hero in terms of his actual strength, probably something like that, basically since he's did it. He's not always been hard meta. He's rarely been hard meta, in fact, but he's always been in the top 4 to 5 DPS heroes since that rework.
Down, his stats are down 30 to 40% since Double Shield came in the game, and we nerfed him one time previously, and he had literally a 40% win rate. He was not pickable. If you get rid of the supports that are broken, that deny all the other tanks from being played, then you open up the game much more to other DPS heroes and dive comps, which negate Hanzo and make him neutral in the meta, which is where he actually is. He just fills in a Double Shield because he can force Grasp, and he can force Fortify, and he can force Immortality.
He's in more than double shield. You see him as a pick. You probably see him more often than you should as a pick in Zen ball comps, because when the Sombra player wants to instead have stronger poke, they frequently go to Sombra. They should probably go to Echo more often than they do, but people aren't good enough at Echo yet.
Field, 3 of the most problematic abilities on this list.
And you also frequently find that Zen ball teams are moving into wanting extra poke when they're playing against a heavy poke comp, and heavy poke comps have enough that makes Echo a little scared in the skies, etc. So they again don't want to go to the skies. So I get it, but it, yeah.
So then the Dragon Blade nerf, this is mostly for low ranks, right? Because they complain about nanoblade and Genji being annoying. This way, you'd have to be smart on Genji. It just wouldn't play for you, but Blade can still be valuable.
But you're destroying him. You're dumpstering him in upper ranks. In lower ranks, he'll still be fine because people don't like those diagonal up aims, those having to spin around to get him. He's harder for them to aim at than Tracer. So, like, I'm okay with it's not going to destroy him in lower ranks. He's not particularly good in lower ranks, other than if he's the best player in the lobby. But, like, he's just going to get dumpstered in upper ranks. You have to give him compensation. You have to.
Considering the Blade nerfs just make him pretty useless right now, so you have to be really, really smart and play in the cooldowns. It's inherently neutral. Echo dying and duplicate will make it so that she's not as oppressive, and she can't just dupe a tank and int, right? She has to play smarter. She has to play...
That's part of her dive.
Slower. It adds counterplay to dupe, and this is what I said they needed to do day one for Echo, by the way. This is what I said they needed to do A1 and day one and consider, and lo and behold, I guarantee you this would fix the character. But you were...
She's going to have there's going to be a lot of extra monkeys and D.Vas and Tracers diving you, and Reinhardts, if you make this change. Like, I don't think so.
Reduce the charge rate to compensate. So you nerf the ult, right? You nerf the total value the ult gives. So you're allowed to reduce the ult charge and revert that nerf. So overall, it's a little bit less power than it is right now, but most importantly, it has counterplay, and it feels
it won't fix Echo.
Fair to play against, so that you actually can punish an Echo if she misplays and duplicate. So that's...
It's not a misplay, though. Like, it's not a misplay. You feel like it should be a misplay when an extra D.Va shows up on you, an extra Winston shows up on you, and you eliminate it, and it's still an Echo that's alive and probably has all their cooldowns. But, like, that's not a misplay. That actually is what the hero is supposed to do. That is part of the ult that makes her strong. Just like it's not a misplay when the Winston jumps on you, blocks your sleep dart with his bubble, and then goes, yeah, there's 2 of you supports. I can't quite take you both down. Cool. I'm going to primal instead. That wasn't a misplay. He knew he had primal the whole time.
It's good. This hog change was really, really stupid. It just, you just... Now,
sometimes it's a misplay, but yeah.
Inherently give people more value for no reason. Make them earn it. Make them learn the game. Make them play smarter. You see a lot of hog players who get away with just stupid...
Except hog's garbage right now, but I'm actually okay with this one.
Things, and unfortunately, he kind of gatekeeps tank synergies right now, so he should be a niche pick, especially in the higher levels of play.
But that's not going to make him a niche pick in the higher levels of play. People are still going to play him. He's just going to be even worse.
Reducing D.Va's armor. She's just a little too strong right now.
I want to hear
how much
this.
Armor she has, and I think if we open up the game, like so this vaulting Brig and nerfing Immortality Field are both major buffs to D.Va, and really...
What? They're not... What? I don't know that they're major nerf buffs to D.Va. What they do is they make D.Va and Sigma even more important for being the defensive parts of a team. If you think of a team as like, hey, let's look at a standard composition where you might have Reinhardt, D.Va, Cassidy, Mei, Lucio, Bap. Your Bap is doing you know what? Let's take away the Bap. I'm going to make this a worse comp. Let's go Winston, D.Va. I'm not going to make it a worse comp. I'm just going to make it a different comp. Let's go with, I don't know, Soldier, Tracer, Brig, and Ana. Primary responsibility for this team is going to be Winston's primary responsibility is to the offense. Soldier's primary responsibility is to the offense. Tracer's primary responsibility is to the offense. And Ana's primary responsibility is healing, but we'll call it to the defense. She slows down the fight she slows down the fight ending. The fight doesn't just resolve in a second because we have some people contributing to what I'm going to loosely call the defense in this fight. Brig, definitely to the defense. She's slowing down the fight ending. She can potentially bash a Reaper that shows up in your backline. She's making it so that a Tracer doesn't just show up and in one clip your Ana, that sort of thing. She's definitely slowing down the fight and the defense. Okay. Obviously, Tracer can do some peeling. Soldier, by having good offensive positioning, is not letting opponents get in. Winston can perform a counter dive. Brig does contribute to the offense by going in and finishing a brawl. Ana hits anti-nades, those sorts of things. I don't want this, but I'm intentionally doing a little bit of a shallow view of the game right here and saying this is slightly more what they're contributing to here. Okay, fine. I'm not saying that Ana is all in defense. She's definitely not. I'm not saying that D.Va is all in defense. She's definitely not. Or that Tracer isn't providing to your team's defense and slowing down the fight by taking good positioning. She definitely is. But if you effectively dumpster, what I want to say is, actually, let's use Bap here. Rather than Ana, let's use Bap. I don't love it, but we'll use Bap. Bap does a lot of damage, so it makes the point a little bit worse. But if you go, let's dumpster this. Congratulations. The entireness of slowing down the fight, not the entirety of it, but D.Va hugely becomes like there's a huge amount more pressure on D.Va to slow down the fight, to not make the fight resolve, and she can't do it. So yeah, the fight will go faster, and I think Samito likes that. It's just weird because before he was talking about how he liked fights to have a early fight uses cooldowns, late fights uses ultimates, and like, okay, you don't even have time to stage properly. You can still do it, but it becomes even more split second to stage properly type stuff. You don't have the ability to send your D.Va to go contest an off angle because the instant you do, there's a Tracer in there that can ignore your Brig because she's helpless and pulse bombs and destroys your backline. Like that sort of thing. Like your defense becomes so easily overwhelmed. And I don't actually think that's a good balance. I think you can go 4-2, but I don't think you want to go like 5-1. I don't think you want to make the defense this weak on how teams are built and how compositions work. And again, Hog, if you replace this D.Va with a Hog, that's basically a full offense character. If you replace so maybe you can replace your Brig with a Mercy, and that's a mixed character. That is a mixed character in what it does. It contributes pretty heavily to your offense, but obviously it has significant defensive value as well. Bap is a mixed character as well, but if you're taking away the big defensive aspect of Bap's kit, you're taking away, or you're completely removing Brig, that sort of thing. You're weakening D.Va so that you've taken away these things, and you've weakened D.Va so that she can get solved in a fight even faster. I guess the fight will be open, like Samito is asking for here, but it is going to actually be like, okay, things just resolve like that. And that's okay in dive metas. But that's not actually necessarily what we get to, because if things just resolve like that, Brawl is actually pretty darn hard to play if things just resolve like that. It doesn't really work because Dive is okay with things resolving quickly, and Poke is going to say, well, we just shred things before the fight even starts because, again, there aren't enough defensive resources in some of this stuff. So I don't know that that's actually better for the game. I don't think that that's strictly better for the game. Let's just run a 3-4 defense, 3-4 cover 2 scheme. I like it, Adam. I like it. Zen, yeah.
See, a lot of people look at these two changes and they say, oh, well, this is just to make damage heroes the best heroes in the game. No, what this really does is this opens up the tank category, right? Because
tell me more.
It's basically what would happen with tanks, since they don't have 100% uptime. Tanks would go in, like Ryan Zarya would go in, Brig would bash the Rhine, and they would just get droned.
Are we talking about goats? Because that hasn't happened in years. Brig bashing Reinhardt regularly when he walks in with a Zarya. Like,
And then the Rhine's stuck in Narnia with no shield, and the Zarya stuck with no bubbles. So these two just hard counter that kind of comp.
No, they do not. Like, especially Ryan Zarya. Like, wait a second. There's a Zarya bubble for that for that Reinhardt, for that Brig bash, for that Brig whip shot, whatever. And also, your Brig took a trip to spawn when she tried to do that. No.
By existing and using their abilities. But if these abilities, if Brig's not in the game for one, and Immo has counterplay, Rhines can actually all...
You're locked in the past, Samito. That is not Brig anymore. It is very rare that you see the Brig is hiding behind a corner, she bashes Ryan while your Ryan shatters, for example, thing. Like that is very rare these days.
In if they're smart and still get value,
more than a year
opening
ago.
up the game a lot more. So really what this is meant to do is enable main tank players in the role to be good, which will reduce queue times across the board for
I mean, weakening Brig enables Winston and Hammond to be better, sure.
Everybody, making the game experience much better,
but not Reinhardt.
Is what you saw in last October, which is why the game was so great. So yeah, this is these two things buff D.Va, so you can compensate by making her punishable if she misuses D.
Still gonna have to draw that one out for me, Samito, how these changes buff D.Va. I know you think these buff things, and like, yeah, D.Va has an easier time going in for dives. We see more of a return of dive. It's true. If Brig goes away, you no longer see the I'm going to whip shot away your Winston and bash your D.Va type thing from Brig. So yeah, I'll grant that D.Va is more powerful. And I agree D.Va is more critical because you've taken away some of the strongest defensive aspects in the game with Immortality Field, Brig, some of the things that slow fights down a little bit. I don't necessarily think that's bad, but we probably have fundamentally different views of the game here. I think the game needs some level of like defense matrix, maybe bash. I don't know that it needs bash. I'm not convinced that the game needs. I don't think the game needs Brig, truth be told. I don't hate her current design, but I don't think the game needs her. But you're gonna have something like defense matrix. You're gonna have something maybe like mercy res. Maybe you're gonna have something like Zarya bubble. Maybe you're gonna have something like fortify. These things that something like wraith. These aren't really offensive abilities. The Zarya bubble can be, but they do slow down how quickly the fight resolves. If you want fights to just resolve instantly, you either need people to have worse aim, worse mechanics, or you're gonna have to. If you don't want things to not resolve instantly, people need to have worse aim, worse mechanics, which, by the way, they did when this game was released, or you need to have defensive things like this that are in the game that sort of have to be dealt with first before the fight just automatically resolves. If you want fights to resolve really quickly, you can kind of just get rid of abilities and play any other FPS. You should have a debate with Samito on stream. I mean, I'd potentially be interested in that. I wouldn't have an issue with that if Samito wants to do that. Samito is a bigger content creator than I, so I doubt he'd be interested in, because I get a lot more of a bump out of that than he does. But I'd be willing to do it. I mean, I expect that Samito is going to be, neither of us are going to look like an absolute fool in that debate. I can pretty much guarantee it. We're both going to be able to we'll walk away disagreeing with each other, but we're both going to be able to defend our vision of the game reasonably enough. So it could be an interesting debate. I don't think it would be like, oh my god, what a fool for either of us, which actually makes it a good debate. Yeah, I'd be interested in that. I just don't think he'd bite.
Or misuses her fly and ends up in a bad position. This makes it actually, you have to be smart, you have to think about it. It adds counterplay, makes the game way more.
Well, there you go. The scarf would beat both of us. It's true, blah.
More chessy rather than checkers, which is what made Overwatch so great. Orisa being able to be headshot through Fortify now allows more counterplay so that the abilities...
Yeah, I think we'd have a good conversation, but I just don't think he'd do it. And maybe if he wants to prove me wrong, that's fine. I'm happy to do it. I don't think he'd do it because, again, like, I'm not bringing enough new viewership to him. He would be bringing a lot of new viewership to me. And generally, you're going to have to find a content creator that's in a similar place when you're doing collabs and things like that.
Just don't carry the player and they feel oppressive, unplayable. This also makes it so that she doesn't have 100% uptime, meaning that she has to play smarter. To compensate, we're going to increase barrier health by 200 health, allowing her to enable the bunker playstyles more. Fortify now reduces 30% of damage instead of 40.
Agreed, Adam. It would be fun.
Again.
It would be an interesting
the
one.
CD is increased. This might be too much. This is the one thing I'm unsure about right now because, again, we're messing with utility and numbers.
Okay. I don't necessarily agree with the utility. Like, I do conceptually agree with utility in numbers. It's really easy for things to go wild when you do that. I think it is just too much, though, to nerf Fortify. Um, I think a 10% nerf to Fortify is too much. I don't care if you increase the CD of Fortify. You can make the CD of Fortify 15 seconds, 16 seconds, doesn't matter to me. 12 seconds, doesn't matter to me.
That's a really risky thing to do, and it might be a little bit too much. But if Orisa's not meta for one patch, boo fucking who? I don't think anybody's crying about it, right? This is she will still be able to play it in this playstyle in the maps where she used to be good. Where
Okay, I'm going to let this stabilize for a second to see if the stream can catch up. I do see that the stream is having a little bit of a hiccup here. Okay. This looks like it may come back. So if you guys are watching this as a video, not as a stream, I know this is a little bit of dead time for you, but I'm giving them a second to make sure this stream stabilizes, which I do think it's going to do so here. Okay, there we go.
bunker was good. Anubis 0.1, King's Row 0.1 defense, like defensive maps, Orisa can set up bunkers and really enable a fun comp.
But like offense versus defense, we don't want this paradigm of like, oh, this is how you're supposed to play on offense, this is how you're supposed to play on defense. Because as we've gotten better at Overwatch, we properly understand that, hey, offense and defense shifts throughout a round. You don't go, we're on defense this round, so we're going to play Orisa. We're on offense this round, so we're going to play Reinhardt. No, because if you're on defense, you can very quickly find yourself on offense when, say, the offense takes control of the objective and now you have to push into them with a payload, for example, that sort of thing. So, like, no, we don't like this offense versus defense thing. It's the same reason that we got rid of the offense versus defense hero select thing for damage dealing heroes. That is not the thing that we want to overly focus on.
For the team to play. So Sigma, what this change is meant to do is also help his uptime not be 100%. This is why he seems so oppressive. We might need to compensate for something else down the line.
This is not going to do anything to Sigma. Like, it's the wrong change. It's not what I'd change on Sigma. It betrays his role as a hero that you could do it if his sustain is really too good, but it's not going to hurt him.
Fine, but his 100% uptime, either way, whether he's
the
good
shield,
or bad,
not being able to shield and grasp at the same time, so we can't cover two directions, is a little more meaningful, but it's a little niche that happens in the first place.
Damage output by making his fire rate faster or something, or maybe buff his shield to compensate for this slightly.
Yes, Garrett, they literally got rid of offense and defense roles.
Where he's meant to do so, but it actually has much more counterplay, making the game feel way less oppressive.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to be looking heavy at how Orisa Sigma play without Baptiste being able to bail them out of any situation. I think they'll be okay, but these are the two things I'm a little unsure about. So we're going to have to pay really, really close attention to them. And then Lucio,
you do not have to pay particularly close attention to this. It's not going to do anything, or at least this part of this. The second part is a little more meaningful, but yeah.
We're going to increase his crossfade diameter, the whole radius of
That's huge. If you're vaulting Brig and buffing Lucio by 3 meters, that is absolutely huge.
From 12 meters.
I feel bad for Mercy.
To 15, making it a little bit easier for support players to peel in general. I'm concerned about dive becoming too good without this, but I can't nerf dive right away because I want to see. I think 6-man rush would actually be better, but we'll have to wait and see.
It does make 6-man rush a little bit better. It does increase Lucio's ability to sustain DPS on angles a bit better, which 6-man rush potentially lets Sombra, Reaper, Tracer open up what they can do a little bit.
So once we wait and see and we figured these things out, we can make appropriate changes to open up the game much more. Those are the 10 things that would drastically improve Overwatch's experience to play. If the game changes like this, it would be grindable for every character in the game. The roster would open up so much.
Except Brig. You can't grind Brig if she's in the vault.
I think it would really revitalize the ranked environment, considering we haven't had a patch from July. So those are the 10 things that I would do immediately, and I stake my career on the fact that these 10 things will fix the game. There is nothing I will not bet. There is nothing I won't stake on this. There is nothing I won't bet because, God damn it, I have been right about this stuff for 3 years, and I have been laughed out of the room by developers, by community members, by everything, but I called Double Shield not going away.
Sure.
I called Brig still being broken.
She's still powerful. I'm not sure people agree with you that she's broken because it's like D.Va being broken. We really didn't care that D.Va was must pick meta for 3 years. Some people complained, some people didn't like it, but we really overall mostly didn't care. We really didn't care that Lucio was must pick meta for a year and a half because it was fine. It didn't feel bad. Like they're a meta hero, they're a must pick, but they're not having undue power in taking over a game. People don't like it when Doomfists are, absolutely taking over games. People don't like it when Widows absolutely take over games. People don't like it when Reinhardt is an undestroyable monster. See Goats. But it's not such a big deal when D.Va slows down the game a little bit. When Lucio helps keep your Ana alive by keeping her away and peeling the dive a bit better. Like, yes, if stuff gets taken away, people don't like something like Lamp because they hit the headshot and the thing doesn't get eliminated. I totally get that. That's more frustrating. Um, Brig isn't nearly as frustrating as she used to be. Like, Tracer beats Brig, Winston beats Brig, as long as the Brig isn't being pocketed or semi-pocketed by their other support. And if they are, let's hit 2v1, and that's kind of okay. Again, yeah, it's a harder 2v1 than our Mercy Zen 2v1 is in a lot of ways, but meh, I don't think that's the end of the world.
I called BAP being oppressive. I called all of these things not being effective.
I wouldn't stake anything on that Genji change. Agreed.
That I have hit the nail on the head on just about everything. I missed a little bit on Genji and his buffs being too good. I missed on Symmetra. I thought she was going to be complete dog shit, but she's actually really, really, really strong on
Yeah, Symmetra's really good where she's good.
Off, especially with 225.
And Symmetra's actually more flexible map-wise than most people realize, but you have to get into organized play to do that. Converse and Collegiate, for example, is a top 16 team, and they made some very good Symmetra brawl play where, much like Dallas Fuel did for a while, they went, nah, we're going to play her wherever. We're not going to have a Casti or we're not going to have a Hanzo, and we're going to abuse our TP to get places to force things into brawl. TP into Lucio speed boost, that sort of thing. Much like a Reaper May comp might go, we're just going to run you over and force the fight into brawl.
Health, so those are really the two things that I've missed on. I have no problem admitting I messed up on those because guess what, guys? The biggest problem that Overwatch has is not that it makes mistakes, it's that it can't address its mistakes. And being able to address your mistakes is a crucial part of being a good game developer and being a good game designer and being a good balancer.
Okay.
You have to address them quickly when you make them. And that's been our biggest flaw. We nerfed.
Yeah, no, we did have an issue in this world, in the Overwatch world, of we decided that we wanted to do a tidal wave of a fix to dive and adding Brig, like this monstrous fix, and then after we'd gotten out of a meta that was mostly well liked but just stale, then we started doing nibble at the edges changes. And it's like, no, you need to do nibble at the edges the whole time, or you did nibble at the edges when you were in a meta that was generally liked. You did slow changes when you're in a meta that is generally hated or has serious fundamental flaws. Then you potentially, like not letting DPS players play the game for a year and a half as DPS, that's when you pull out the sledgehammer and make big changes. Or if you feel double shield is too oppressive when it's right after a ghost meta, same thing.
Brig 19 times and she is still game breaking. It does not work in this game. It is a sunk cost, and that is number one on the list. Well, by the way, these aren't in order as to how needed they are.
Sure.
Except for number one and
well,
two. Number one and two
like
are
one and two,
the must-dos, and we're going to underline these and emphasize that. These
underline,
are the musts,
bold, yeah.
and these are optional, but good. These are good changes, but these are the musts to open up the game. So, yeah, that's how I'd fix Overwatch.
Okay, so overall, I don't like this. Overall, I am not a fan of this. I do not think this saves Overwatch. I can definitely see that Samito does have a bit of a DPS bias, wants things to be deleted, wants things to just go away. When you shoot them, they should get eliminated, that sort of thing. And that's fine. You do want good, skillful plays to be rewarded. A game does work better when the game functions like that, and that's fine. But you do need some level of prevention. And as long as it's prevention that people understand, it's fine. D.Va was a little frustrating at first because, again, you couldn't necessarily see the defense matrix, that sort of thing. But people are very used to D.Va at this point, and I'd say people are pretty darn used to the modern Brig, with the exception of Samito. I know that they can both be a little bit frustrating, but you do need some defensive elements to not just have it be the fight resolves immediately. Again, this is the same thing where, hey, people don't actually like the game either when your tanks round a corner and instantly get blown up. They don't actually like that. They don't like it when Reinhardt walks through the corner, swings once with his Zarya bubble, and just gets deleted before his first swing is even over. Like, they do not like it when the game works like that, because defense actually needs to have some level of sort of working in the game for the game to be fun, to get this, hey, let's have cooldown trades, let's have a fight that sort of evolves, let's have decision making get into this, and not just, okay, everyone hold your crosshair here, or everyone flick your crosshair, and the best flick wins, or you're holding your crosshair in the right place and you win. You want a little bit more of a team fight to happen. That's what makes Overwatch fun, I would argue. And it's okay, you can want a faster pace than the pace that we currently have. I am totally fine with original dive, where a lot of the skill that happened to the game, if you were a support because you didn't have terribly strong peel in the game at that time, was you might go, I have a Zen on my side, they have a Zen on their side, and what's going to happen is my Winston, Genji, and Tracer, and maybe D.Va are all going to dive theirs, and theirs are going to dive mine. And it kind of sucks to be the Zen, but I actually had a lot of fun as the Zen or the Ana in this situation. Of part of your skill is how good are you positioned? How good did your team and you do of pressuring these people before they got in? How quickly was your team able to stage and set up their dive? Because if your team could dive 2 seconds faster than the other team could dive, it doesn't matter that you got eliminated. You're still going to win because you were on the board with Discord, with damage, with Harmony Orb for 2 seconds longer than theirs was, and then they come back and clean up your team. So it was fine to get eliminated in the fight. The game resolved relatively quickly when it actually resolved, though it still had significant amounts of setup and staging and battling for the lanes that happened back then. So I'm okay with like a fast evolving fight that doesn't involve Brig. I am not coming from some place of all fast fights are bad. Dive is my favorite meta. Dive generally resolves quite quickly. So I am good with dive. Like, I am good with fast resolving fights. That's fine. But I do think there is some level of, hey, can we properly set up a fight? Can we get some cooldowns out? Can we go, hey, especially if we're playing hybrid comps, which is what we're playing right now, of, hey, let's get a little bit out in the poke phase and the rotation phase. I do find that to be good for the game. And dive still has, even if you're pure dive, you still have a poke phase. You're not necessarily poking them hard during the poke phase, but you're rotating, you're battling on the lanes for your control, and that's sort of your setup phase, that sort of thing. So again, you want those things to happen. You don't want a ton of comps like 6-man, which are, in my opinion, a little more unhealthy for the game, of let's just all press W, and now we're running 6-mans at each other, and hey, the other team can't have a Brig to help with this 6-man dive. Oh, that's not so great. The other team can't have a lamp to defend against. The other team saw a fraction of an opening and they throw an ult and it's just over. I don't think that's necessarily the best thing in the world. Because again, it's totally fine to go like, hey, ults are good. It's fine to balance a character around that. I'm okay with nerfing Bap though. I probably just wouldn't do it like that. So again, I look at these. I think we have slightly fundamental differences of the speed at which Overwatch fights should play out. Obviously, at high level, Overwatch does play out very, very fast in the team fight itself, and that's fine. But the setup has a little bit more of jockeying for position, jockeying for resource advantage, be that health, cooldown, positioning, you name it. Okay. So as we look at this, as I look at these, I'm actually okay with this. Temporary, but I'm okay with this. This is not the nerf that I'd hit, but I'm going to downvote this. But I would say you can nerf him in a different way. I'm not opposed to nerfing him in a different way. I'd probably shrink window or take away his regenerative field, but I don't. Again, I don't want to specifically go with this one. Oh, did I? Okay, that's fine. Okay. There we go. I don't want to specifically take away that one. Oh, we have a super chat coming in from Adam in charge for $4.99 saying, why do new games have so many bugs? People told me Battlefield 2042 has bugs. Why are people so obsessed with bugs? They're gross. Why are they in every game? Okay, well, they're in every game because we don't playtest stuff quite as hard. We have a bit more push these days to get games out, and games are vastly more complicated. That is why there's more bugs. There's more drive to get the game out than perhaps there used to be. A little bit more, oh, this has to happen, rather than the people working on it being quite as in love with their craft as they used to be, or the people in charge of it being quite as in love with their craft as they used to be. We also put out a lot more games, but let's not pretend that there weren't bugs in previous games. I mean, we've released Nintendo cartridges where, okay, we printed all of the copies of a Nintendo cartridge, and whoops, turns out the game just doesn't work, whatever, can't even launch it, whoops, that happened. They'll go be part of the landfill type thing. Bugs have always existed. You may jokingly be referring to bugs as the gross type. I get that. I see what you're referring to there. It happens. At least there's less bugs these days, or maybe not at least. Maybe this is a bad thing, but when you're driving up and down highways, there's less bugs that die on your windshield now than used to in the past. Okay. Immortality Field, again, you can adjust BAP, you can nerf him. I'm okay with Immortality Field existing, though. I really am. This isn't what I do. This isn't what I do, but I'm okay with it. I'm conceptually okay with let's make him more of a sniper. I'm conceptually okay with a projectile speed buff. I actually want a harder nerf here, though. Either to Storm Arrow or to Lunge. And I'm willing to compensate him for that with a second off Sonic Arrow. But I'm willing overall to give this to him, just like I'm willing overall to temporarily give him a Brig Vault. This doesn't work. You cannot do this to Genji. You cannot do this to Genji without compensating him right now. This doesn't really work either. It's not the right change for Echo. I think Echo's more powerful than most people realize. I think this would be, hey, Echo getting more ults is probably not what you want. She's just going to turn into an even harder poke than ult hero, and that isn't her design space. Her design space is to be a less dive heavy, more poke heavy version of Genji, or a more dive heavy, less poke heavy version of Pharah. You could say that she's too good compared to Pharah in some ways, but we have seen people prove no, Pharah does have her place. So I'm actually okay with her right now. I'm okay with this. Again, Roadhog probably needs a buff. I don't think this would work. I don't think it'll do what you want in terms of causing less people to play Roadhog and get you more tank synergy back. I think it's still fine, though, because I think it's a stupid change and it encourages people to play the game wrong. And it's not like Roadhog was, we're reverting a buff that already happened, and it's not like this made Roadhog so much better to play, feel good, anything like that. No, I'm not going to go with this one. Again, you're making fights resolve super fast, making fights be able to be solved super quickly. If you're going, hey, we're getting rid of Brig, we're basically getting rid of Immortality Field, we're also weakening D.Va, we're also weakening Sigma, like, that's just going to be such okay, well, we can just brute force this and force the fight, and I'd be worried about seeing a lot more zombie comps like Six Man come out to play in that type of situation. I'd be worried about seeing a lot less, hey, let's set up the fight properly, let's take our angles, let's play for the resource advantage, if we can just go, hey, we can brute force our way through the D.Va a little more quickly. That said, I don't think this is a very big one. I don't strongly disagree with this or anything, and I actually would be willing to go, like, if you gave me a patch and this was the worst thing in it, I'd go, that's stupid, but I don't care. Like, that's stupid. Stupid is even too strong a word. Like, I disagree with that, but that's not breaking my heart by any means. Headshot through Fortify is fine, but this turns her back into a barrier bot. This is going to turn her into a greater barrier bot. It doesn't do what I think he wants it to do in terms of, hey, she's going to be a greater barrier bot in terms of that shield has greater uptime from a reduced cooldown and greater health on the barrier. That doesn't make her more decisive. Her decisiveness actually is around her barrier placement, ultimate timing and to her halt timing, and like that is when she can pull attention to her. That is when she can bait vision, force vision to herself, and that is how she enables her team. If you make it last longer, she actually just becomes closer to Sigma, and I don't think that's what we want. Again, increasing the cooldown of Fortify doesn't do anything. I don't particularly like making, but I also don't see any need whatsoever to make her more eliminatable through Fortify. It's fine. It's totally fine to have to shift past defensive cooldowns. Like it's totally fine to go. We shot Orisa. We got Fortify out. Now we hard swap over to D.Va. Now we hard swap over to who's someone who could reasonably still be alive after you got Fortify out. We hard swap over to Zarya. We hard swap over to Reaper and shoot at him to get his Wraith, and then we swap back to the Orisa and finish her off. That's fine. It's totally a fine way to play the game. It is totally a reasonable skill set for people to have and for it to be rewarding in this game. There's no reason for it not to be, which is the opposite of the hog, which is the no, we don't want this like shooting at tanks mindlessly is rewarding and we're having the battle around can we blow up or heal the tank faster, but we get more ult charge for healing it. It's the opposite of that in my mind. This first part of the change doesn't do anything, so no, but it kind of betrays his character. I'm actually okay with the second change. I'm ultimately going to downvote this, but I don't mind the second half of the change. If we just go with the second half of the change, I'm fine, and I don't really think the first half of the change actually does anything, so maybe I'll just go neutral on that, where I'm like, hey, I don't in any way think you need to do this, but it doesn't bother me. It bothers me even less than the D.Va change. The Lucio change is big, and I'm okay with it. I'm just struggling to be okay with it in a world where Lucio is played more than Mercy, significantly more than Mercy in high level and organized play, and we're buffing Lucio while removing Brig. Like, I can give this an upvote. I can give this a yeah, I'm good with it. I really can. It's not how I'd change Lucio. I'd instead change Lucio by probably going, hey, let's go ahead and reduce his beat requirements just a little bit, not significantly, just a little bit. That's really where I'd probably go with Lucio. Maybe you could take a second off your amp cooldown. Those are probably more areas that I would go with Lucio. Or no, not an amp cooldown. I'd probably instead say, no, let's add an extra round of shots to his weapon. Or maybe a slightly faster reload. Something along those lines. But I'd potentially be okay with this. I'm probably not okay with this in this patch, though. I'm not okay with this in a patch where we've taken away Lucio's competition in Brig, and we're also buffing Lucio, and then Mercy is just like, what am I, chopped liver? Like, that's probably not going to work for me. So I look at this and go, yeah, there's one change here that temporarily could be interesting, could be fun, could be very useful for the health of Overwatch. There's one here that isn't how I do it, but is okay, and another here that isn't how I would do it, but is okay, and then there's two that are sort of like meh. I definitely wouldn't do this in this patch, but if I'm trying to have a little bit more diversity here, this is kind of my thoughts on this. Again, I just don't think there's a need to make either of those changes to the off tanks there. I think D.Va and Sigma fit into the necessary evil of the game, but I also think Modern Brig is an okay evil. I would like to see a bit more diversity in the support line because I actually think there's more potential for diversity in the support line. Brig doesn't have to be a basically mainstay pick the way that D.Va and Sigma basically have to be a mainstay pick, and you're not going to get Zarya or Hog to take the spots from them without either taking away things that are necessary in the game from Sigma or D.Va, or massively buffing Sigma and Zarya so that their numbers are just too good. Or not Sigma and Zarya, Zarya and Hog, so that their numbers are just too good and they just brute force their way in effectively. Okay. 4.5 out of 10 is an F. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Okay. Give Lucio increased ult charge while speed is up. Maybe. Okay, I think that covers my thoughts here. If you guys vastly disagree, definitely let me know in comments and chat. I'll do a brief chat catch up here. I won't pick out everything, of course, because we've been going for a while. But if you've been enjoying the content, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so. You can also join the Discord and you can react and to get notifications to, well, get notifications. And then you can become a watcher. You can get pings when I go live, see if I'm reacting to a Samito video about the how to save Overwatch. See if I'm, going over the collegiate scene. See if I'm, what else do we do here? See if we're doing a Lieutenant Surge Team Rocket run through the newest Pokemon. See if we're doing all sorts of different things that we do there. If we're doing coaching on, okay, this is how you play Anna at a GM level. I just put one, just did a GM coaching session with an Anna last night. All sorts of things like that where you can see them. You can be here for those live if you want to see them. And hey, that can work well for you. That way you can ask questions, pick the brain of a former top contenders coach here. 3 hours. Yep. Why is our gaming culture so obsessed with bugs? Because people like nitpicking. What do bugs have to do with video games? You'll figure it out. What bugs have to do with video games is, you see, we used to have our computers in ships because that was really one of the places that you could afford to have computers because they were such big things. This is totally a ship. I don't know why I drew a ship like that. In a ship, let's give you some Steam stacks. Why not? Why not? Sure. We would have these giant computer rooms that would effectively, have their stuff, and then a bug would get into them, and effectively a bug would get in them and get fried by what was effectively a light bulb, and it would stop the whole computer from working. So you'd have to go check for bugs to replace this thing that is this filament, this thing that is effectively a light bulb, to get your computer to work again, because computers were the size of rooms back then, and you have to go check for bugs, and that's why we're so obsessed with bugs, because they took down early versions of computers on ships. Probably Magdalena. I have a late scrim that I'm coaching today, but after that, I do expect that we'll do some, that Lieutenant Surge will show up and stream some there. Okay. They had huge computers in spaceships that were broken by alien bugs. Exactly. Okay. Let's take a look here. And the vault hunters will be opened by the vault, lured by promise of great treasure, and Brig will be inside. So it's Pandora's box, is what you're saying. No, I'm kidding. Okay. The Overwatch team isn't great with admitting mistakes. Humans aren't, but they're pretty bad at it. I agree. This change didn't work. We will make another change rather than reverting it. They've been pretty bad about that. They've historically been pretty bad about that. Like, no, we're never admitting that this was the wrong change. We'll just make a different change. We'll nerf the hero in a different way, where it's just like, come on, guys, just revert the buff or revert the nerf. We know what the right answer here is. Game added Ball and Doom and Echo since Brig. What? No, Doom was added before Brig. You're gonna need to buy your supports something strong to drink. No, you really don't, Garrett. Again, the game existed with Sombra, with Doomfist, with Anna, not with Ball, admittedly, and we played a dive meta where it was a Zen protected by a Lucio, maybe, versus a Winston, Genji, Tracer, and maybe a D.Va all coming after them, where teams alpha dove each other. They just tried to set up their dive and dive, and some of them understood how to battle for lanes and not let their mirror in, do tank trading, things like that, but some of them didn't, and if you wanted to win as Zen, you got better at surviving for longer against this 3 to 4 to 5 person dive, sometimes you've even got a Lucio here, than the other Zen was at surviving against theirs. And that was how you won as a support. And that's okay. It's effectively, if you think of because this is a Blizzard game, we can talk about games like Warcraft 3 or StarCraft 2, and it's effectively playing a base trade meta, a base race meta of, okay, you're over our base with a bunch of carriers, we're over your base with a bunch of battleships. I can't get back and protect my base in time, I'll just lose. So what we're going to do, because we path tier differently, is we're going to base race who can eliminate the other player first, or who can destroy their manufacturing first effectively, because you both have expos, but you won't be able to rebuild from them, that sort of thing. So yeah, like it's not unplayable to have a game with lower defensive values than we currently have in terms of keeping your supports alive. I was totally fine with that meta. I'm not a huge fan. Original Brig was a stupid way to fix that, and you could see original Moira, current Moira even, Moira, right before Brig was also a poor way to fix that, in my opinion. And we moved a lot of the responsibility from, okay, well, the game was about punishing supports beforehand to punishing tanks, and that was not healthier for the game. Tanks that constantly got Doomfist punched, hacked, separated by Maywalls, knocked around by all sorts of stuff, blown up from taking one swing with his Zarya swing was not a better state of the game. And it turned out there were less tank players, especially main tank players, in the first place than support players. So that wasn't a particularly great place to direct all of the abuse that happens in this game. And there's always going to be some abuse in it of terms of ability usage, etc. Blizz got rid of offense and defensive roles. It's true. Temporal greater than Samito, sure. Hanzo can get picked in Brawl, Dive Poke Hybrid, Poke, and Double Sniper. Pretty much, yeah. He's got a lot to go with there. But Poke and Double Sniper are really the same thing. Like those are the same place. You can say, oh no, you think of them as different comps, but they're both Poke comps. Zarya's kind of left in an awkward spot, not being the best at anything. And I think the place to look is a little bit better holding power. I think Zarya's going to really struggle to work in the game in Overwatch, not necessarily in Overwatch 2, while D.Va and Sigma exist, because D.Va and Sigma just offer so much in terms of slowing down the fight. And Zarya really doesn't. But it's probably okay. If it's okay for us to have a hero like Moira that goes like this, it's probably okay for us to have an off-tank like Zarya that also goes like this, right? Like, that's not the end of the world. And Zarya does it to a much higher level than Moira does most of the time. Obviously, yes, Moira has a spot in 6-man right now. Zen is OP. Nerf Sigma's damage, we talked about that. I'd rather nerf his rock. Echo needs a nerf, perhaps. Okay. Delay on CD of Storm Arrow and single shot primary. Maybe. Okay. Not gonna lie, a live longer than the other support life doesn't sound very fun, but wasn't around for it. I mean, I played tank in that meta, but I also played support in that meta. It was fine. Sometimes you lost because your team was nowhere near setting up their dive by the time the other team did their dive, but that happens in Overwatch now too, where whoops, my Tracer just hard lost their duel, or whoops, they have a Widow and they're just better than our Widow, or like you see stuff like that happens where, yeah, if 4 of your teammates are nowhere near setting up their dive, even if you're better than the other Zen, you're still going to lose because 4 of your teammates were worse, and that's kind of fine. Now, can you delay how fast the opponent set up their dive by properly chipping them, properly not letting them set up, properly getting picks with right clicks? Yeah, you can, and there you go. That's how you disproportionately impact the match. And you kite better, you position better, you obviously still do have your Lucio, that sort of thing. It was fine, honestly, it was more exciting. Yeah. Support players had to be stronger people when supports were first to get eliminated. Now they're weak. Okay. You want something new every day? That would be in reference to the bugs. Thanks, Coach. No problem. Okay, I think that's going to do it. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so. Thank you once again for the super chats, and I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks.